Good evening. I'd like to call to order the regular meeting of the City Council, City of Lakewood, Colorado. Just happens to be on February 12th, 2018 in Chambers, which is Abraham Lincoln's 209th birthday. So, with that, will the clerk please call roll?
Paul.
Here.
Johnson.
Here.
Vincent.
Here.
Vida.
Here.
Franks.
Here.
Gutwein. Here. LeBure.
Here.
Skilling.
Present.
Harrison.
Here.
Abel.
Here.
Royball.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Great. Well, I would like to welcome you all to Chambers, and we've got some folks still signing in, so that's fantastic. I'd like to also remind you, if you wish to speak or you think you wish to speak tonight, please take the time to sign in. We'll keep the rosters back there until just before public comment, and that way we can expedite. We have a lot to do tonight, and we want to make sure we hear from everybody. So please sign in, and if you would join me in standing for the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing for a moment of silent prayer. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Please be seated. All right, a couple updates before we jump into a few resolutions. On the agenda this evening, there's a couple different things, and one will be polling item number 9, which is Resolution 2018-7. We're going to take that to general business, and that's creating an ad hoc committee. There was some language in there that was not reflective of the original draft, and so we need to change that. So it's just an opportunity for us to change, and there might be some members that change as well. So we can address that under general business, and Councilor Abel's ready to talk to that. You'll also see an agenda request pertaining to Green Gables. And this was an interesting one that made it in when council members submit agenda form. It doesn't get filtered or anything along those lines. And this came through and it's not quite done. And so I'll turn to Councilor Royball or Beta to talk about that and talk about what to do with that.
Okay, Mayor, we want to pull that,
Okay.
so we'll go ahead and pull it.
And I agree, it was done inadvertently, it was not intended to be.
Certainly. Okay, so that will then be polled, and that was under topics for upcoming agenda items. And then as we get through into general business, there'll be a call for executive session, and that will be brought forth by Councilor Beta, and that will be to discuss the Denver Federal Center, and the gist of that will be made in the motion. Once we do that, upon adjournment from City Council, this body will go right into executive session, and we will not be coming back, so that'll end the meeting. There won't be anything further from there. I know CCH is a polarizing topic. I know it's challenging and it has great concern. There's fears of the unknown. There's fears that are based in reality. But what I'd like to say is let's keep the conversation positive. At the end of the day, we're talking about human beings. And when you come into our city, it says we're building an inclusive community. And I think we all stand by that. And we had an opportunity to go to a meeting last week, and there were folks who were very concerned and very passionate. Some of that spilled over into some negativity. And I think it's important as we talk about this and talk about these types of projects that we just keep in mind, these are our fellow human beings. And I hope that we can carry that forth in public comment tonight as well, because that's what Lakewood's all about. So with that, will the clerk please read item 4 into the record?
Item 4, Resolution 2018-3, appointing and reappointing members to the Lakewood Advisory Commission for an Inclusive Community.
Thank you. I'll turn that over to the committee chair, Councilor Charlie Abel.
Good evening. I would like to move for the adoption of Resolution 2018-3, appointing Chris Revard to the Lakewood Advisory Committee for an Inclusive Community, and reappointing Suzanne Adams, Kate McBride, and Jansen Request also to the Lakewood Advisory Commission for an Inclusive Community.
All right, so we have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
All right. Motion and a second. Please cast your votes. And that passes 11 ayes, 0 nays. Will those folks please stand and be recognized? Come on. All right. Thank you all very much. Will the clerk please read item 5?
Item 5, Resolution 2018-4, appointing a member to the Lakewood Board of Appeals.
Counselor Abel.
I'd like to move for the approval of Resolution 2018-4. And would Rhonda Peters please stand? We're appointing Rhonda Peters as a member of the Lakewood Board of Appeals.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
We have a couple seconds. Motion and a second. Please cast your votes. And that passes 11 ayes, 0 nays. Congratulations. Will the clerk please read item 6 into the record?
Item 6, Resolution 2018-5, appointing a member to the Lakewood Employees Money Purchase Pension Plan Board.
Counselor Abel.
Mayor, I'd like to move for approval of Resolution 2018-5, appointing Kevin Lundquist to the Lakewood Employees Money Purchase Pension Plan Board. Mr. Lundquist, would you please stand?
All right.
Thank you.
Second.
Sounds like we have a motion and a second. All right. Please cast your votes. Look out. 11 ayes, 0 nays. Very cool. So before we go to the last one, I just want to remind folks, please sign up for public comment. The rosters will be gathered here shortly. And will the clerk please read item 7 into the record?
Item 7, Resolution 2018-6, appointing a member to the Lakewood Historic Preservation Commission.
Counselor Abel.
Mayor, I'd like to move for approval of item 6, Resolution item 7, 2018-6, appointing Calvin Jennings as a member of the Lakewood Historic Preservation Commission. Could you stand, Mr. Jennings?
All right.
Thank you.
Mayor, I second that.
All right. Looks like we have a motion and a second. Please cast your votes. Boom. 11 ayes, 0 nays. Congratulations. So just again, thank you to all who are here tonight and willing to get involved and serve. I hope you find the experience rewarding. A lot of great things. And Councilor Abel, I think there's probably some more openings.
Yes, there are. The screening committee is going to be busy in the next few weeks. We have remaining openings on the Advisory Commission for an Inclusive Community, 2 openings on the Board of Appeals, a Historic Preservation Commission opening, and 2 openings on the Planning Commission. And residents of Ward 2 and Ward 3 are eligible to apply. The deadline is February 16th. Also, we have an opening for the Victims Assistance Compensation Board. That deadline also is February 16th. And I would like to encourage a wide variety of folks to apply. We need your help.
Great. Thank you very much. Okay, next up is public comment. Public comment is the point in the meeting where the public is invited and encouraged to address the City Council on items that did not appear on the agenda. All comments should be directed to the City Council. I ask that all in attendance observe the decorum of the City Council chambers and refrain from applause or audible support or discord with the speaker. I'd also encourage you to keep your comments directed at the City Council or at me if that suits you. There's a 3-minute limit per speaker. This little box here will go green. 2.5 minutes in, it'll go yellow. When your time's up, it'll go red, and I will politely try to wrap that up. So there were some questions about public comment. We'll have a second public comment for the consent agenda, which are resolutions 7, 8, and 9. So that'll be separate. Everything else is under general public comment. And it looks like we have students that are here and would like to try to speak sooner than later, so I'll check in with that. Margie, point of reference, which is this? Non-agenda, and then I have, well, we'll figure that out. So, public agenda, Raj, you are up first. Is it all general, no consent? Okay. Good evening. Welcome.
I'm going to talk. I'm a resident of.
Yes, please. And if you could speak loudly into the microphone. We'll turn.
I'm a resident of Lakewood. I'm not a vendor, so I just want to give back to the community. That's why I'm here. The first slide is about policing and how powerful it is, and it's basically based on neuroscience. It's a 30 years worth of neuroscience behind it, research. It's not based on faith.
Why do we have 3 of these?
And because of this, what I would like to do is ask you to, I think I went back to here. Okay. It helps in many ways. It's a antidote for stress, and it has tremendous health benefits. And there are a lot of people involved in this, and they're on board. About 24 medical schools are involved in it. Law enforcement, like the Navy SEALs, Army, they're also involved in this. At-risk youths, prison systems, and law enforcement, both locally. There is a Glendale Police Department doing this. And then also in Oregon, in California, and in Washington, several police departments are doing this. And rape crisis centers are also following this. And then locally, in Denver West Office Park, we have Lutheran Spinal Clinic. And there they teach this mindfulness program to help people who have serious spinal injuries and a lot of pain so that they can reduce the opioids that they are taking and then cope with the pain. So the benefit of the cities, and it is up to you to promote and support your police officers in Lakewood. It can save lives. It can save money to the city. It can reduce liability insurance, lawsuits, and legal fees. And it also reduces the stress for the police officers and their families, because a lot of police officers take this stress to their home because it stays with them for nearly 72 hours. Some of my neighbors are police officers. I have talked to them about this, and they say it's an excellent idea. And then it brings them happiness because they can handle the stress. They can cope with the situation. It prepares them to any event that's going to take place, so they won't be stressed out. And then also it improves the relationship between the community and the policing. So it tremendously improves the quality of policing. Police officers will be able to handle any situations. because they feel that they are in control. And they won't have to invoke the fight or flight response. And then also it will reduce citizens' complaints, and then also improves policing. And then you can say that we have a proud police department. And then we can set an example, because when it hits the news or the Denver Post and they say that Lakewood has the best police department in Colorado, Denver will come out and say, how did you guys do it? Arvada will come and say, how did you guys do it? By the way, I plan to talk to the Arvada Police Department also about this. And also I'm working currently with the Jeffco Sheriff's Department. So this has got tremendous benefit. And I think it is very critical for you to look into this. And so all I want from you is a sponsorship. So one of you can sponsor this program, and then give me a contact person with the city so that I can work with them. Because I have tremendous resources in the form of videos, and books, and there was a recent article a couple of months ago on Time. The entire article is related to mindfulness. And in Yoga Journal, the whole magazine is related to mindfulness. So it has got tremendous potential. It equips police officers with, it's like a bulletproof their mind so that they can handle any situation and takes the stress out of it. So if you can do that for me, I would really, really appreciate it. Okay.
For coming out, we appreciate it. Andrea Galfaso?
Fuso. And is this the appropriate time? Because I was prepared to speak about the sustainability plan.
It's under, yeah,
This is
absolutely.
fine?
Yep.
Okay, great. Thank you for having me.
Pull the mic down, please.
GY. Okay. My name is Andrea Gelfuso. I'm a citizen of Lakewood. I also teach sustainability, and I'm an environmental lawyer. And I was really impressed to find out that Lakewood had a sustainability plan. Why do I care about this issue? My climate story is about camping with my kids. How many of you guys like to camp? Anybody? I love waking up in a Colorado forest. I especially love waking up because I spend the whole night being afraid of being attacked by bears. So I'm good in the morning. When my kids were little, we booked a campsite in the Arapahoe National Forest, but when we pulled up, instead of a tree-filled forest, we were in a parking lot where all of the trees had been cut down because the trees had been killed by pine beetles. In Colorado, pine beetles have killed over 3 million acres of Colorado forests. How the pine beetle population used to be killed off by cold temperatures. It doesn't have to be cold all the time, but it has to be cold during specific times in the pine beetle breeding cycle. And it's so warm now that pine beetles breed not once, but twice a year. So Colorado has over 800 million standing dead trees. Because the beetle-weakened trees are a safety and a fire hazard, they have to be cut down. So our campground was basically a treeless parking lot with stumps and mulch. We found a better campground, but warmer temperatures mean more dead trees and more bad campsites. I don't know how many of you have kids. I want my kids and their kids and everyone here who has kids to camp in a living forest, not in a parking lot with stumps and mulch. That's why I'm here. There's no question that climate change is real, and let's just talk about a few of the actual effects we are experiencing in Colorado. We are experiencing extreme weather, like extreme downpours that cause flooding. They cause flooding in Boulder and Colorado Springs. Rising temperatures also dry out the soil, which causes severe droughts, and earlier snowmelt, so that the precious water we rely on is gonna go downstream, leaving the state. And remember those 800 million dead trees? They fuel wildfires. In Colorado, the average fire season is already 75 days longer than it was in the 70s. And wildfires are literally hitting close to home. Remember the wildfire on Green Mountain? I could see it from my house. And mosquitoes that carry diseases like the Zika virus. We never used to have mosquitoes that carried these exotic diseases. They will be able to survive warmer Colorado summers, which puts Colorado at risk for mosquito-borne diseases we've never faced before. We're already seeing the effects of climate change. The good news is the City of Lakewood's sustainability plan. I actually don't have it with me, but I saw, wow, we are already making progress. And I have to thank you for having the vision to work on that and for the city to carry it out. We're already seeing results. We're already seeing reductions in greenhouse gases and energy consumption. That's gonna make a huge difference. Let's keep up this good work, because the people who suffer most from the impacts of a changing climate won't be us, won't be the geezers in the room, like me. It's gonna be my kids, our grandkids, and they deserve better. Thank you for your work so far, and let's keep it up.
Great, thank you. Thanks for the correction on your name. I might do that a few times tonight. Braden Kerr. Mr. Kerr, good evening. A couple weeks in a row.
You left your oh. There we go. Okay. Hello, my name is Braden Kerr, and I am here to testify on global warming. So, now to the speech. Over the past 50 years, the average global temperature has increased at the fastest rate in recorded history, and the experts see the trend is accelerating. There's a scientific consensus on global warming that consensus is that global warming is real and it is happening now. 97% of climate scientists are in agreement. There is no debate here. It is just scientists debating not scientists. And since the topic is science, the non-scientists should not get a vote. Yet they do, and that is the reason we are having this debate here today. Because people who are not researchers, who have never set foot in a climate laboratory, were cold on their way to work this morning. Saying because there is snow, there is no global warming, is like saying there is dark, therefore there is no sun. It is scientific consensus on all the facts and all the evidence which leads those most qualified to believe that climate change is real and is happening now. Only one of the 16 hottest years on record happened before the year 2000. This trend has also been going for the past 100 years. If you will refer to the second page of my handout, do you guys all get it? Yeah. So you'll see that the climate has been getting warmer since the 1980s. You must forgive me, but the darker areas on the map in the earlier times, that would be blue. It's just I was out of ink, so kind of the blue and red look the same. So this shows a global increase in temperature, which you can also see on the second graph on the first page. We know this is caused by human CO2 emissions because if you look at graph 1, you can see a clear correlation between the raised amount of carbon in our atmosphere, climate, and temperatures. Climate change deniers have argued that there has been a pause or a slowdown in rising global temperatures, but several recent studies, including a 2015 paper published in the Journal of Science, including a 2015 paper published in a Journal of Science, has disproved this claim. And scientists say that unless we curb global warming emissions, average U.S. temperatures could increase by up to 10 degrees Fahrenheit over the next century. Some might say that global warming is only a theory like gravity or relativity, both ideas regarded as facts because there is an overwhelming amount of evidence to support these ideas that are classified as theories. There is in fact no higher scientific classification than a theory. A theory is higher than a fact and a law because, by its definition, a theory is a logical extrapolation of the facts and laws that govern the world around us. And this affects all of us, even here in Colorado. Tens of millions of trees have died in the Rocky Mountain regions over the past 15 years, in areas such as Colorado, victims of a climate-driven triple assault of tree-killing insects, wildfires, and stress from heat and drought. A record 129 million trees in California have faced a similar fate. In fact, iconic tree species, including the piñón pine, aspen, and whitebark pine, may face staggering losses across much of their current range if heat-trapping emissions continue to rise. Severe droughts may become commonplace within a few decades, causing widespread tree mortality and major changes in character of the western landscapes. Thank you for hearing my concerns. I hope you take my message to heart.
Next up, I have Alexander Goetz. And then I have Mr. Freeman. Welcome.
Thank you. My name is Alex Getz. Thank you so much for allowing me to speak on this. I'm also going to talk about climate change. And first off, I just want to highlight everything that the last two speakers have said has been absolutely correct. That's very impressive that someone as young had so much information, facts. I didn't bring that many facts, and I have a degree in environmental science. So I'm just going to kind of piggyback off of a lot of what he said. Also, the first speaker was my mom, so I am one of those kids she was talking about who's going to have to live with this. Very specifically, yeah. So as I said, I studied environmental science, and I'm about to go into a PhD program studying ecology. And one of the first things that we learn in, intro to environmental science is climate change is happening. And pretty much every class that I took on the topic involved some discussion of climate change, possible effects, what can be done to mitigate it, and what is not being done to mitigate it. But really, you really cannot pass a freshman level class in environmental science without knowing that climate change is real. And so there have been studies dating back very, very far that have shown we've all seen the graphs, and we were just reminded of the graphs very helpfully. But I just want to really underscore that the best case scenario at this point, according to the current research, is a 2-degree global average increase in temperature. That's in degrees Celsius. And that's something that is going to be felt very differently across the world. And for that reason, we can't just classify it very simply as global warming, i.e. it'll get warmer, everywhere in kind of a just, flat across the board. Sorry, I'm not really prepared to.
You're fine.
Thank you. And so this is something that sometimes we feel as it being colder. The polar vortex is something that is exacerbated by the fact that the ice caps are melting, and so the cold air is going down further because of the way that the wind stream works. And it's all very complex, and it's a global scale, but it's quite undeniable given the wealth of evidence. And there are studies being published every month that are showing more little minor things that are changing as a result of global temperatures increasing. And I was just talking to a professor who was doing a study that showed that really quite conclusively you can show that an invasive grass, cheatgrass, is becoming widespread at higher elevations because it's warmer up there, and so it's able to survive at those higher elevations during the cold seasons. And so, it's these little things that just serve as reminders. And so, as I said, the best case is a 2-degree increase. Worst case is looking like a 5-degree increase, which, if you look at the way that would impact sea level and patterns of extreme temperature changes over the course of the year, it would really impact agriculture. The entire patterns that we've established of how agriculture works and where it occurs would have to be completely redrawn. And so I just really want to, again, come out in support of this sustainability plan. I think it's great that Lakewood is putting in the effort to try to change things on this local level, because while this is a global issue, the only way to really attack it is locally. But at the same time, the way to attack it is to band together and come up with solid plans that will have real change as the goal, and that we can band together and focus on this. And so I want to applaud the city of Lakewood for having these efforts that so far have definitely been, we've been seeing real decreases in energy use, water use, and I think that is the right step. And by continuing along that line, I think that we can do a lot of good. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for coming out. Is that your pen?
I think it was.
Okay. So, Mr. Freeman, welcome. And after that, I have Gary Hardy, Senator Kerr, and then we have the team duo of the Venners, Nick and Elena. If you guys want to come up so you can get out home and do homework. Welcome.
Good evening, Roger Freeman. I am proud to be speaking on Honest Abe's birthday. As a barrister, I'm happy to address you. I'm a former Davis Graham and Stubbs lawyer. Many folks know that firm. I was there over 30 years. And somehow I found my way out from the congestion of Denver to Lakewood on the light rail, and I never came back. I've been here a few years, and I love Lakewood. I knew I was a Lakewood guy when I was at a conference recently, and there was some talk about, well, Lakewood, they don't even talk about climate change. And I said, I got my hackles up, and I said, we sure do talk about climate change in Lakewood. So now I know I'm a Lakewood guy, and on that note, I have two different comments. One, I actually, as a Ward 1 resident, applaud Councilwoman Johnson for bringing up this issue and for giving us a forum for scientific debate. But I think it, obviously should be a discussion that focuses on the science. And we have the best scientists really in the nation, in the world in some ways, here in our area who are studying this issue. In order to really have a study debate, we need scientists who are very focused on the scientifics and who are able to help us understand where the science is going here. I know I'm confident of how that discussion will go, but I don't think there's any problem with doing that as long as it's in parallel with the sustainability plan that we already have in place. That kind of discussion does not need to be a hindrance or an impediment to the sustainability plan that many are here to applaud. No quack doctors, no quack scientists. Let's have a discussion. But I don't see a problem. It seems like we brought out a number of folks just to discuss that. My second point is on something that I've seen about the possible replacement or discussion about the city attorney and whether or not the city attorney should be vetted in an RFP. And as a lawyer who's worked extensively on business issues, who knows city issues, I would add just a few key points on that. One, there's a huge amount of institutional knowledge associated with being the city attorney in a place like Lakewood, especially now when we have so many growth issues, so many nuances. It's not just knowing the code that's important. And I don't know the players involved. I'm just getting involved in these types of issues. I don't have any vested stake, but I would just counsel you to be really thoughtful about any process that might change the construct, especially during this time where you have a number of agenda items facing you and where it's important to have continuity. So make sure that process is open and accounts for that type of history that Lakewood has. Those are my comments. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Welcome to Lakewood. Mr. Hardy. Welcome. Did you ride your bike?
I did not. I apologize for that. Mayor Paul and councilors, thank you for this opportunity. I'm concerned when I saw that it was proposed by Ramey that we would devote a study session to essentially debating whether climate change is taking place or not. And I think that issue has largely been settled. We've had people much younger than me speak more articulately already tonight on that. I think those study sessions are much too precious. I think those of us, and I represent one of dozens of people who devoted many, many hours to helping craft that sustainability plan, we're looking for City Council to help us start implementing it. And we think that's where we should go. I'd like to leave you with just a couple of facts from the CDC. The CDC has estimated that 1/3 of all children born after 2000 will develop diabetes, and it's largely related to lack of exercise and poor diet. It's also known that asthma and obesity are becoming epidemic in our young children. And again, this is related to air quality and diet and exercise. And the sustainability plan addresses some of these issues. It addresses the things that we all want: clean air, clean water, sources of quality food. And we're anxious to see the sustainability plan start moving forward. We've got a good sustainability plan in place. Let's keep it moving. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Senator Kerr. Welcome.
Thank you. Aren't you going to ask me if I rode my bike?
Did you ride your bike, sir?
No, but thank you for bringing that up, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to talk about the ice that's on my street that prevented me from riding my bike.
Fair enough.
Sorry about that.
That's good. Good stuff.
Probably won't be the only apology I'll be making tonight. But thank you, Mr. Mayor and councilors. I come before you tonight because I heard there was an effort to hear all sides of the climate change issue. My first thought on that was, aren't all the facts on one side? Well, of course they are, but that got me thinking, what about the things beyond the facts? And with that, I stopped thinking and prepared these remarks. Sure, our laboratories reveal the data, our universities teach the science, and even our high schools and grade schools teach the method of rationally sifting through the evidence and testing hypotheses. But even before kindergarten, I learned a valuable lesson about belief from the story of Peter Pan. If you believe Tinkerbell is real, she is real. If you don't, she isn't. That is what it is like with climate change. To make it go away, shut your eyes and wish it gone. There's a power to the naive belief of a child, and I trust we have that power with us. I think this very council has an innocent, childish Tinkerbell wish, willing to lead us past the facts to a safe, happy fantasy world where nobody has to face the responsibility of growing up. Because if we ever did grow up, we'd be forced to admit that it is no coincidence when the beetle breed over our passes, the fires scar our forests, and the water dries up in the Colorado streams. Global CO2 levels are killing us. A 30% increase in ocean acidity is killing us. We need a Tinkerbell with fingers pressed deeply in her ears to show us a more simple way to deal with grown-up thoughts. When you live in Neverland, time stands still. You can enjoy long years of profiting from the destruction you cause. With enough money, you can keep the jury out on anything. Tobacco being good for kids, lead being safe for our air and water. You can be safe from anything at all. But in the real world, the science catches up. And while we have seen the delaying tactics before, we have never seen a danger to inaction like we see today. So if you insist on being rational, I urge Lakewood in every city everywhere to take meaningful action to address climate change and prepare for its consequences. If, however, you value the sweet innocence of pure belief, I encourage you to point yourselves toward the second star to the left and keep yourself moving straight out till morning. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We'll work on that street for you. Good evening, Nick.
Hello?
Welcome.
1 second, let me get this laptop. There we go. Thank you. Hello. My name is Nick Venner. I am a student of Bear
A
Creek.
little bit closer, thank you.
Okay. There we go. Hello, my name is Nick Venner. I'm a student of Bear Creek High School, and I come on behalf of my peers who are unfortunately not able to make it tonight. I'm not going to spend a terrific time beating in the beating in the science of the climate change issue. I have had many of my peers come up here today who have done a much better job than I could on explaining this. However, I would also like to point out that this is an issue that we have been grappling with for decades, and only now do we really have the solution to solve it. A 1965 White House memo report says that burning fossil fuel emissions causes irreversible climate change and predicts 10-foot sea level rise and catastrophic change. In 1972, the Atomic Energy Commission reported that rising CO2 emissions could melt polar ice caps and inundate the coastal regions. And the science has only gotten better and since then. It was probably even acceptable to hold a belief 10 or 20 years ago that climate change was not a real thing. As the data has come in and better analysis and atmospheric techniques have come to do that, it is almost impossible to look at the science these days and not expect that. But that's not what. But you said, Mayor, to keep the tone positive, and that's what I'm here to do today. Is that now fighting climate change is now an economic necessity. Wind costs 1.9 cents per kilowatt hour. That's cheaper than coal. And adding storage costs only a cent more. It is crucial to act on this right now, not only to protect future generations, but also to protect just to protect the ratepayers' wallets. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Where are you gonna? Is she skipping? Okay.
All right. My name is Marie Venner, and I'm a business owner in Lakewood. We love living here. I grew up in Colorado, and I'm from an agricultural family on one side of my family. So it really strikes me to see a map like this. And unfortunately, the printing got worse as I went along. But can you all see this, or is there a way to project it?
If you put it there, Madam Clerk will turn that on and.
So on this, you can see the projection. There's over 85% chance of a 30-year Dust Bowl-sized drought in Colorado after 2050 on our current path. And this is an updated image that I'm showing you. When this first came out, maybe in 2012, I personally had quite a bit of hope for Colorado because it was ambiguous what the impacts would be in the mountain areas. So I thought, well, we're pretty close to the mountains, and obviously, I have my fingers crossed. It wasn't going to be too bad, but as they have continued to refine the models, you can see here, Colorado is like the bullseye for the brownest part of the country, and it's now the full state, not part of the state like the plains. And it's equally brown going south. So there's all those folks from Central America and Mexico that are basically going to be burned out too. So coming from an agricultural family, this just really strikes us. It's completely irresponsible for us as public servants, and I come from the public sector earlier, to leave this sort of legacy, and we can do a lot better. We can have a very positive future. You know, there's all these dystopic novels and in movies, but that, you know, we can do something different. Today, we have a good future ahead of us, but we have to take it. On the left there, the other image I wanted to show you is how long carbon stays in the atmosphere. Essentially, what we have is like a tub that's overflowing. We're overfilling it with carbon, and it's an incredibly slow draining tub. So what we put up there just accumulates. And you see from those graphs, and actually that part printed out a little bit better, I could pass those on, that wherever we stop is what we're going to get. So we need to stop sooner. And thankfully, Adam had signed on with many other mayors around the country that we're all in with the Paris Agreement, with all the other countries in the world. And those goals basically mean that we need to turn around now. So that's the very sensible thing to do. That's the positive future that's before us, but we have to make those choices now. Otherwise, I firmly believe, and I chair a number of subcommittees under the Transportation Research Board, under the National Academies of Science and Engineering, we're not going to be able to look ourselves in the mirror in 10 or 15 years. We must do the responsible thing, and people are being impacted now. This is not a way off in the future thing. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
And Elena will come up and speak from middle school perspective.
Thank you. Good evening, Elena. How are you?
Hi. I just actually
Can you speak into the mic? Thank you.
to come here today, so I don't really have a speech. It's kind of ad-libbed. But basically, I'm Elena Benner. I'm 13 years old, and I go to Creighton Middle School, if you've all heard of it. So I've lived in Lakewood for as long as I can remember. I've moved here when I was 2, so basically my whole life. Overall, I've had a pretty great experience. I really like this community, and I've had a lot of fun growing up here. And as a Lakewood City Council, you've done a pretty great job of adhering to the public interest and holding these meetings, which we can come and speak to. And thank you for allowing to hold this tonight and let us talk to you guys. I'm basically on here along with my whole family and many others before me to speak about climate change. This whole issue will affect my life, my future, and my kids and my grandkids. And I'm hoping that we can kind of turn this all around before it's too late for them, because I want them to have a good future and to be kind of narcissistic, me too. So, yeah. And I don't really want to have to grow up living in this world where we have so much drought and sea level rise and ocean acidification, and we won't be able to see all these animals that are currently going extinct right now. And I just want to turn that right around. So I know you guys all have like this thing with Excel and like how you can kind of ask if you have like renewable energy or like whatever. And I would basically want to ask you if you could maybe talk to them about maybe going on the more renewable energy path. And so, because this matters to me, because carbon dioxide stays in the atmosphere for a long time. As my mom said before, it's like a bathtub that's very slow to drain. And scientists at NCAR and NOAA have determined that at least 20% of the CO2 is still in the atmosphere, causing warming over 1,000 years from now, and other studies peg that to be 10,000 years from now. So yeah, it's basically a bathtub that's very slow to drain. And there is no good way to increase that rate by which CO2 can be taken out. In fact, our forests and oceans are absorbing less than they used to, as they are already impacted by this climate change. And I know that there's ocean acidification is because of it, and already our forests are being cleared and cut down because of the beetles and stuff. So I'm just standing here before you today to remind you that this matters to me a lot, because it's my future and it's my kids' future, and like what you do can really help what happens to my future. And if you would just be willing to, kind of help that a bit, that would be great. Thank you.
Thank you. Well done. You did a nice job. Okay. So I have Scott Kurzgaard, Ms. Lois Witte, and Jennifer Teeuwen. Good evening.
Hello, I am Scott Kurzgaard, and I'm really just here for a glass of water.
Well, public comment is good payment for
Yes.
glass of water.
I've lived in Lakewood about 15 years. I'm a real estate agent and a sometime journalist. I wrote my first article about climate change in 1985. In 1989, I attended a conference on the subject right here in Colorado. More than 1,000 people were there. I wrote probably 10,000 words about that conference, 1989. The science has been fairly serious for 70 years now, and less serious for a century. The time to study it is long past. It's time to act, and we all know it. And if you haven't studied it yet, then maybe you aren't the people to study it. And I don't mean that in a bad way. You're not scientists, but you know the science. Act on the science. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening. My name's Lois Witte, and I am an attorney here in the state of Colorado. I've spent my entire 30-plus years doing water law in the state of Colorado, attending conferences, many of which have been on the impacts we are going to have to our water system as a result of climate change. And while the city of Lakewood may think it's prudent at this point in time to look at whether or not climate change is real and debate it before moving forward, I can tell you that you're way behind the curve of everybody else in Colorado. I bought a copy, Climate Change in Colorado, and I can leave it with the council. You can also get it off the internet. It was a study done for the Colorado Water Conservation Board, and I don't know if the members of Lakewood know what the Colorado Water Conservation Board does, CWCB, but they are our state agency vested with the responsibility to manage water resources, ensure the state has a sufficient supply. Well, this report was prepared in 2008, and it concludes that the scientific evidence is clear. The Earth's climate is warming. Multiple independent measurements confirm widespread warming in the western United States. In Colorado, temperatures have increased by 2 degrees Fahrenheit between 1977 and 2006. Increasing temperatures are affecting the state's water resources. The report concludes that the accumulation of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere is very likely the cause of most of the increase in global average temperatures. Now, I don't know why the city of Lakewood would want to reinvent the wheel. It's been done by the state, for the state of Colorado. You can go through, read the report. There's very unpleasant facts about the future of our state and water resources in this report. I encourage you to look at it because I do think it's time to move and not to study this issue. I'd also encourage you to look at Denver Water Board's website. They also are very concerned about climate change, as is every other water manager in the West. That's all water managers talk about. That's all they're concerned about, climate change and how it's going to dramatically affect our life. Denver Water Board is being very progressive on making sure it implements all the conservation methods necessary to attempt to continue to provide a water supply. They are also taking every action they can do to reduce their own greenhouse gas footprint. And that's what every government entity in the state of Colorado should be doing. We should not be debating it. We should be marching forward so the young kids, my kids, have a chance to live here and drink. Thank you.
Thank you. Jennifer? Good evening. And then up next, I'm sorry about the name, I'm going to do terrible. Elizabeth, Mool, and then it continues from there. Okay. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Jennifer Teeuwen. I'm in Ward 1, and I am also here to speak to the request for a study session on climate change. And what I'd like to do is take a minute to recognize what the City of Lakewood has already done and what's already in place. As stated on the city's website, the City of Lakewood has a sustainability plan. It guides our efforts to create a thriving community today without compromising the quality of life for future generations. Since we have a few new folks on City Council, and for anyone that doesn't know the background of the sustainability plan, I wanted to read from, again, the city's webpage. And this can be found under the Planning for Sustainability section. And then there's another little section called Sustainability Plan. And this is what it reads. Lakewood City Council formally approved the Sustainability Plan on May 11th, 2015, after more than 2 years of collaborative planning between city staff, residents, community stakeholders, and industry experts. And then within that section, there's another little link that goes a little bit further into what was involved in that planning process. And it says, the planning process for the sustainability plan began in the fall of 2013 after being endorsed by City Council, involved 8 open houses, 87 work group participants, and over 450 volunteer hours from the Lakewood community and stakeholders. Council members, every effort was made to ensure that this plan was inclusive throughout the entire process. I'm pretty sure that we can all agree any effort made by our city to address the quality of the air that we breathe, to ensure our water and soil is free from chemicals, to provide the most efficient and cost-effective energy, to address issues surrounding transportation, and issues of community cohesion and public health are in the best interest of us individually and collectively. I'm grateful that the city has a plan in place that addresses each of these concerns specifically. I see the city as my partner as I and we face changes in our community. So my hope is that rather than a study on who agrees or disagrees with climate change, that we have a study session, even multiple study sessions on how to best move together as citizens and city leadership toward reaching any of the goals that are already defined in our sustainability plan.
Thank you. Elizabeth, and up next is Michael. I'd probably do the same with the last name, so my apologies. And then Barbara Mills after that, and then Carrie. Welcome.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, I'm Dr. Elizabeth Molinari, and I conduct research on the social cultural impact of energy production, in particular natural gas extraction. I work closely with scientists in other areas of energy production from the United States, the United Kingdom, Germany, France, Italy, and Australia. I'm a resident of Ward 1 here in Lakewood, and I would like to urge the City Council to adhere to the sustainability plan. Simply, sustainability means the avoidance of the depletion of natural resources. We must prevent the exhaustion of natural resources. And this is not a partisan issue. President H.W. Bush already mentioned in a 1988 campaign speech in Michigan, our land, water, and soil support a remarkable range of human activities, but they can only take so much, and we must remember to treat them not as a given, but as a gift. End of quote. And he also said, quote, these issues know no ideology, no political boundaries. It's not a liberal or conservative thing we're talking about. End of quote. In Western Europe, parties on the left and the right side of the spectrum work together on sustainability and environmental issues. Moreover, a lot of people focus on how these sustainability standards could hamper our economy. But economists and financial models have shown that renewables will be cheaper to use for us in the future. This will benefit everyone, but especially people with modest salaries and small business owners who rely on energy to run their operations. For a long time, natural gas has been attractive because it was readily available and cheap, but wind power is projected to become cheaper still, as you already heard. Also, renewables are less polluting forms of energy and will put less stress on our public health in general. As is clear in my research and that of my colleagues, environmental issues frequently disproportionately affect the most vulnerable people in our society. I feel we all have a duty to protect each other. Cleaner energy will lead to more prosperity and better standards of living for communities as a whole in the long run. Finally, Lakewood residents care a great deal about sustainability and the environment. There are at least 8 neighborhood groups and many initiatives and projects focused on sustainability. And when you walk through the city, you can see solar panels on houses. Lakewood has over a dozen renewable energy businesses dealing with solar and wind. And when I attended a meeting about the homeless project on Federal, I noticed that at least half of the people who spoke had a great concern for environmental issues related to the developing of the land. I'm confident that as representatives, you will share Lakewood residents' concerns about these environmental issues and will follow the sustainability plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor. Michael.
Thank you. Honorable Mayor and members of the Lakewood City Council, my name is Professor Michael Brankin, and I'm a citizen of the First Ward, and I teach chemical engineering at the Colorado School of Mines. Among other courses, I teach thermodynamics, fluid mechanics, mass transfer, and advanced transport phenomena. And I can assure you that I'm well versed on the atmospheric science underlying the need for sustainability. I understand that there are a lot of powerful and partisan motivations for different opinions in this issue, but I'm neither a Democrat nor a Republican. In fact, I've been a member of a third party since the second election I was able to vote. And my purpose here is not to stir up partisan tensions. I'm speaking to you this evening as an engineer, well-versed in the energy industry. I've worked in the oil and gas, closely with companies in the oil and gas sector in the United States and in Europe, who is always seeking the most practical and efficient solutions to existing problems and opportunities. The future of energy is renewables. Let's just get that out right now. The globe is now on an inexorable path to improve and increase the share of renewables as a share of our energy resources in the energy market, for reasons as various and sundry as reducing our dependence on foreign oil, and all foreign energy for that matter, to simply saving money. As was mentioned a couple of times, wind is already cheaper than natural gas and forecasted to become even cheaper, and solar is well on its way. Our societies will necessarily increase the availability of renewable and sustainable energy dramatically over the coming decades. That may be in the form of wind, solar, trash incineration, or even biologically derived electricity, but make no mistake, this is the direction that we are all heading as a global society. That is not to say, of course, that there's no room for chemical fuels. I can't imagine an electrically powered plane carrying more than 1 or 2 occupants anyway. But by 2100, when we saw those predictions, I certainly hope that most of those fuels are being produced by my students from renewable energy. And the chemical fuel is merely a medium for storage, just like a battery. Personally, while I do agree with the liberal perspective that something must be done to attack climate change, I most certainly do not believe that liberals have all of the answers here. It would seem, for example, that cap and trade has largely failed in California and the EU. Where it has not resulted in significantly reduced emissions. I wholeheartedly believe that we need both liberals and conservatives to come to the table with solutions that we can debate and discuss and eventually try to implement. So if I may address my representative directly, Councilmember Johnson, if your intent is in suggesting a study session is to expand our options as to exactly how the City of Lakewood will continue to uphold our sustainability plan, that is the 200-page document the official sustainability document that you refer to in your agenda request, as well as maintain compliance with the Paris Climate Agreement, as our mayor has so deftly put forward. I wholeheartedly support your efforts. We need diverse options in how to attack this problem. But if the goal of your suggested study session is rather to undermine the sustainability plan by casting doubt on the very science of climate change, then I believe you are wasting our precious tax dollars and even more precious time. I would add at this time the Lakewood Sustainability Plan passed the City Planning Commission by a vote of 6-0 with 1 absent voting member, and it passed this body by a vote of 7-3, also with 1 absent voting member. Furthermore, it only reached a vote in the Planning Commission after 6 working groups consisting of stakeholders and industrial experts, which held a total of 24 meetings in 2014 and 2015. And you can refer to case PL-13-004 for those facts. I hope you therefore understand why I'm strongly urging this council to continue to uphold our sustainability plan and maintain accordance with the Paris Climate Agreement. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Professor. Thanks for the footnote. Barbara, good evening. Welcome.
Thank you guys for all hearing all of us. We've heard from young and old and older and science and facts and everything. And so I thought I would bring another voice into this. I live in Ward 4. And I have a few quotes from a National Geographic article from last year. And that magazine is currently owned by 21st Century Fox, which is the Murdoch-controlled company that owns 20th Century Fox Movie Studio, the Fox Television Network, and Fox News Channel. So I'll just read a couple of quotes. Norfolk Station is the headquarters of the Atlantic Fleet, and flooding already disrupts military readiness there and at other bases clustered around the mouth of the Chesapeake Bay, officials say. Flooding will only worsen as the seas rise and the planet warms. Sea level at Norfolk has risen 14.5 inches in the century since World War I, when the naval station was built. By 2100, Norfolk Station will flood 280 times a year, according to one estimate. This visibly changing geography made Norfolk the natural poster child for the climate challenges confronting the Defense Department, and seems as good a setting as any to consider the fate of climate science and the military in the new political era in Washington that will set the bar for how climate science is pursued by the government. The #1 national security concern at the Defense Department is climate change. The Defense Department has been planning for climate change for more than a decade, often in the face of roadblocks set up by climate science skeptics in Congress. And then they list a bunch of naval bases that will be flooded, et cetera, and how they're concerned about that. And the condition has spurred the Defense Department to join forces with state and local officials and scientists in the cities of Norfolk and Virginia Beach in an experimental partnership to find a way to adapt the region, not just the bases, to the watery future they face. It's just another indicator. I mean, if we can't trust the Defense Department, we're in big trouble. And I have a document here I'd like to leave with you all that was a presentation by Chuck Hagel in 2014, in which he discusses, it was given at the Conference of Defense Ministers of the Americas, and he discusses the security implications of climate change. So I'll just
give that to the clerk. That's great.
Just give that to the clerk. Thank you.
Thank you. Carrie, and then I have Mr. Don Sorensen and Eli, and then Ron Horseman. Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor Paul and councilors. My name's Carrie Sonneborn. I have been involved with the Sustainable Neighborhoods Program for the past 5 years, pretty much since its inception. I'm the lead contact for Sustainable IBER. I also got my PhD in 2006 in energy policy with a focus on response to climate change. I'm concerned that the proposed climate science study session is, a distraction to action and perhaps even a direct attack on the Sustainable Neighborhoods Program. and also on the Lakewood Sustainability Plan, both of which are hugely popular with the citizens of Lakewood. As you know, the Sustainable Neighborhoods Program is an award-winning program that has spread to the city of Denver. The Lakewood Sustainability Plan has also been received with huge enthusiasm by the citizenry, as others have already said. And the city needs to continue encouraging and supporting environmental action by its citizens, not casting doubt on basic environmental science. Of course, if that study was going to be looking at, bipartisan solutions, if we can even talk about bipartisanship at the local level, I kind of hope not. But the Sustainable Neighborhoods Program has served as a catalyst for community action on the breadth of environmental and sustainability issues. Climate disruption is clearly one of those accepted issues. It does not need to be studied or debated for its veracity. It would waste counselors' valuable time and taxpayer money to do so. So please, let's support citizens' sustainability concerns and actions, not cast doubt on them by such a study. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Don? Ellie, Ron, and Sandy. Good evening, welcome.
Thank you. My name is Don Sorensen. I live in Lakewood, Ward 1, mayor, councilors. I come here to give you a trip report. A little different from the other conversations. Can you turn this thing on?
You betcha.
There we go. So last week, actually it was about 10 days ago, I attended the Colorado Community Symposium that was held over in Aurora. It was a 3-day symposium that was pulled together by the governor as a result of his proclamation during the summer, his executive order on this topic. And it basically was a symposium on climate preparedness and clean energy development in Colorado. And my point of bringing this to you, and I got some other information that I'll show you just as an impressive numbers, but what really struck me in that 3-day event that was held in the big news center over there in Aurora was there was 500 people from Colorado that arrived to talk about how they were going to protect their communities from climate change, how they were going to protect their communities or provide clean water and clean air and low-cost energy. And I was blown away by the number of speakers. It was a who's who of Colorado leadership and at all levels of communities. So let's take a look at some of the details here. So this is, can I move this? Hey, it does move. So this is just a list of the people that attended. Like I said, and this is actually dated before the conference actually occurred, so it's probably more than this. 50 local governments, 18 agencies, 50 nonprofits, and 26 plus companies that were on this list. And it's kind of a who's who. It's all across the state of different agencies and companies and communities, community leaders, so on and so forth, that came to this. I was, like I said, it was amazing. In fact, there were folks from Houston and Chicago and international visitors to the conference just to see how to do this, because it hadn't ever been done in the United States at all. So this is just a list of the speakers that spoke at that event. There was over 95 speakers, and many of them are, Jeff Ackerman from the Colorado Public Utilities Commission, the CEO of Excel, Michael Hancock, mayor of Denver, CEO of Holy Cross Energy, which is a utility in the western part of the state, mayor of Aurora, executive director of Colorado Department of Transportation, CEO of Denver Water. Denver Water has been mentioned here. He was very passionate during his presentation about the issues we're facing here. Former Governor Bill Ritter, Steve Sackgron, I probably killed his name, City of Aspen. So it's just a who's who of people who were there. And this is what they talked about. I just pulled all this off the website. So it was basically a bunch of sessions, the initial speakers and one thing, another typical sort of symposium. But then it was followed up by breakouts. And what I found myself wishing is I was with a team of like 4 people to visit all these breakouts, because there was tremendous amount of information being provided in every one of these sessions. And they handled them so well in the sense that they were sort of community forums. And basically no attribution comes out of those forums, and they just allowed everybody to talk. And they had a bit of leadership in the conversation. And what you found is some cities were really good at something, some cities not so good at something else, and some cities are just getting started. And what was wonderful was the collaboration that took place during this whole event. So I'll leave this with you. You can look it up online. But I thought it would be useful in this conversation in the sense that Colorado, or Lakewood, is not the only one chasing this rabbit. There are a lot of folks very, very concerned. In fact, there's 7 cities and governments in Colorado that have committed to 100%, and tomorrow night there's likely to be one more. Who do I leave this with?
You can leave it with the clerk,
Okay.
please. Yep, thank you. Eli? Good evening, welcome.
Thank you.
It's Eli Isley.
Oh, Ms. Isley, are you Mr. Horseman?
Yes.
Okay, we got it flipped.
Okay.
One moment. You're next.
Hello.
Good evening.
Eli Isley. It's phonetically.
Welcome.
I was born in former Yugoslavia in Macedonia. It's phonetically Eli Isley. I first want to thank you for having me here. I'm not going to talk anything more than everything was said until now. I did my doctorate research on climate change 3 years ago, when the day after the Paris Climate Accord was signed. And I want to thank you because now, how I'm going to do this?
Yep, just put it right there and we'll get it.
Oh, okay. Thank you. So it will. Now the cities are working more than the states are. So I just want to thank to all of you leading us and showing us what to do and how to protect our environment. Just short thank you.
Well, thank you. Thanks for coming out. Mr. Horseman, good evening. Then I have Sandy and Laurent.
Mayor Paul, council members, first of all, thank you for your service and public service and your time tonight. I appreciate the opportunity to comment. I'm a registered Republican. Don't hold that against me. But I live in Lakewood, and I'm in Ward 5. And I'm a member of the Lakewood Clean Energy Committee. I work for Western Area Power, Department of Energy. And I have had 15 years in city management experience. And all of my work in my entire career has been around the subject of climate change and energy. So I appreciate the opportunity just to make a few comments. And most of the comments I want to make have already been said, but I want to make a comment about inclusivity. Lakewood is boastful about their efforts to be an inclusive community. And we need everybody on board when we address climate change. So doing a study on climate change can be either divisive or it can bring us together. I think we need to put some attention on the efforts that have already been made to make Lakewood the inclusive community that it is and continue those efforts. There are several volunteer groups in Lakewood that have been mentioned that are working hard to assist with the existing sustainability plan. And we have made some significant progress, and we're really proud of the work you guys are doing and the city staff. And you know that you guys helped us get Excel to the table. You've helped us with improving the building codes, and we're working on the community solar projects in Lakewood. So we're just beginning that process, and we need everybody's help to be successful. We think we can make a huge positive impact in Lakewood and make it the inclusive community that we want it to be. There's a quote that I want to make and just conclude my remarks with, and that is, Lakewood, Americans in the world can no longer afford to be complacent regarding the issues surrounding climate change. It affects us socially, politically, economically, and environmentally. We must establish a new direction that leaves a legacy of good stewardship. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Sandy, Laurent, and then Ms. Johnson. Good evening.
Hello, dear members of council. My name is Sandy Weathers, and I'm a resident of Ward 3. I would actually like to address my comments to Councilor Johnson today. I have been monitoring the activity of council for the past 7 years, and it's because of my due diligence that I'm very aware of your position on climate change. On 2 occasions, you've made statements regarding your stance. On June 6th, 2016, you quoted a publication by the American Association of Petroleum Geologists claiming that the climate debate is more political than scientific. On June 19th, 2017, you stated the Earth was cooling when you were in nursing school. It's because of my familiarity with your stance that I felt compelled to personally invite you to a seminar being held at a local middle school regarding the latest data on the matter. And it was to my delight that you responded. You sent me a very nice email. It said that you were going to attend the seminar, and you asked me a question. I would like to read that question now and respond. I believe because of the importance of this issue, council should have a study session and invite a variety of speakers. For me, public policy is best after thorough input. Wouldn't you agree? So that question sounds simple enough, and most people, including myself, would agree that public policy is best after thorough input. However, in this instance, I have to wholeheartedly disagree. We learned that night at the climate change seminar that the percentage of publishing climate scientists who attribute climate warming trends to human activities have grown from 97 to 99%. This number is astounding, so much so that I compare having a study session on the validity of climate change is like having a study session on whether the sky's blue. I mean, I'm really dumbfounded by this because sure, at the end of the day, you can find somebody to say the sky is brown. You're always going to have an outlier. It doesn't mean you have to have a study session on it. At this seminar, you did not speak publicly, but your husband did. And his concern was that the numbers being presented by our speaker did not reflect the opinion of all scientists, only climate scientists. I have another analogy here. I just really feel this is a weak argument because if I had a heart condition and I went and asked all the cardiologists, what should I do about my heart condition? Is this a problem? And if somebody came to me and said, well, you didn't ask the dermatologist about your heart condition, you're saying that my data is invalid for that reason. And I don't support that argument. And I feel that having a study session on the validity of climate change is a waste of time. It's illogical, and I think it's a waste of council's time as well. And I don't feel that this is an issue that is important to your constituents. I just have a hard time believing that your constituents are reaching out to you and asking for this to be done when we have all these other pressing issues on the table right now. I'm still holding out hope. I'm hoping you withdraw your proposal. I think it's in the best interest of our community, of our city, of the residents. My biggest fear, aside from wasting time, aside from wasting taxpayer dollars, is that we're going to look foolish. We have our mayor who supports the Paris Agreement. We have our sustainability plan. We have so many people who are in favor of this. And having a debate on this, I'm afraid, will garner attention from local media, state media, as well as national media, and we're going to be the city that had a debate on the validity of climate change. And I'd like to leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Johnson? Oh, geez. Yep, come on down. I switched them, but you're already in motion. Sorry. Plus, you hung out late with us last time, so good evening. This is early, right?
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it.
I feel a bit like a fish out of water because I'm not here to talk about climate change, as you know. My name is Ann Johnson, and I live in Ward 1. I'm here again to talk about the proposed D10 multi-use bike path, which is currently being slated to be built between Kipling and Oak Street on the north side of the light rail tracks. To begin with, I support bicycle paths and those who use them. What I am not in support of is using eminent domain to build a complicated and expensive multi-use path when a bike path already exists on West 13th Avenue. As you know, the use of eminent domain means the taking of property, trees, security, and privacy, all of which result in the decrease in value of our homes and property, not to mention the pleasure we take in our homes and yards. I support leaving the bike path where it already is on West 13th Avenue and using existing funds for improving this path rather than moving it. And as I did last week, I would like to invite you all to walk this section of the proposed path to view our properties and see how this path would impact each and every one of us. In summary, please reconsider the decision to move the path to the north of the light rail tracks. Instead, improve it and leave it where it is on West 13th Avenue. Thank you.
Thank you. LaRon, and then Lavon, and Eva, and then Sarah. Sorry about that. I hijacked you.
Thank you. Hello, my name is Lauren Mayon. I'm a Lakewood resident and have been for 10 years. And on top of everything that's been said, I just want to say, this isn't a partisan issue. How did it become a partisan issue? How can someone, how have we gotten to this place where there's like identity politics, the understanding that we want to have clean air or if our planet is warming? This is weird, people. This is very strange. And it's unique to the American USA landscape, you know. So on one side we have every single country on the planet agreeing that climate change is a big problem and we need to act now. We have every large political party, conservative or liberal, in all over the planet, from the Chinese communists to the staunch Tories in England. The first time I ever heard about climate change, I was skeptical. It was Margaret Thatcher in the 80s. I don't think anybody can accuse Margaret Thatcher of being part of a liberal ploy, Madam Johnson. And with that, I don't want to make anybody uncomfortable or express negative feelings. It's not the place for it, as our mayor highlighted at the beginning. But I want to read something. This is a little text. Jerry Taylor, who is the resident climate change skeptic at the libertarian think tank Cato Institute, who used to write skeptic talking points for a living and often appeared on TV and radio news programs for the skeptic side of the climate change debate. And on one such program, he went up about a guy called Joe Rome, a physicist and blogger on climate progress. And Taylor describes his encounter, quote, "On air I said that back in 1988, when climate scientist James Hansen testified in front of the Senate, he predicted we'd see a tremendous amount of warming. I argued it had been more than a decade, and we could now see by looking at the temperature record that he was not accurate. After we got done with the program, Joe said to me, 'Did you even read that testimony you've just talked about?' And when I told him it had been a while, he said, 'I'm daring you to go back and double check this.' He told me that some of the Hansen projections were spot on. So I went back to my office and I reread Hansen's testimonies, and Joe was correct. So then I talked to the climate skeptics who had made this argument to me, and it turns out they had done so with full knowledge they were being misleading. After that, I began to do more of that due diligence, and the more I did, the more I found that variations on the story kept arising again and again. Either the skeptic explanations for findings were dodgy, sketchy, or misleading, or the underlying science didn't hold up. And Taylor gradually saw that his previous talking points about climate science were rubbish. With an open mind, he looked further at his economic and policy arguments against action on climate change, and they too crumbled. And so with that, if anyone on this council is skeptical that climate change is real, there's a large group of people in the room with a lot of competence on this. We would be delighted to meet with you. We promise you a peaceful, calm, rational evaluation of facts to help you understand the reality of the planet and the ecosystem we live in. But we did not feel that it was a wise use of council's time to spend hour after hour debating established science. We would rather see our council focused on workshops that plan the implementation of the existing sustainability plan. And in fact, this plan is about a lot more than climate change. It's about clean air, clean water, much broader issues linked to the fact that we have 10 billion people soon living on a finite planet with finite resources, and we have to do our part to transform our economies to live in harmony with this planet in a way that is sustainable and respectful of every member of humanity. So, thank you.
Thank you. Levon, Eva, Sarah, Michael DeRosia, and then Michael Fulton. Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you for your time this evening. My name's Levon Welchel, and I live in Southern Gables. And I'm here before you tonight to speak in favor of the city's sustainability plan. And really from a different angle. I'm not a scientist. I do believe what the scientists, 99% of them concur. But really from my perspective of being 30 years in the Southern Gables neighborhood, when I first moved into that neighborhood, I can tell you there was very little neighborhood participation. We had a homeowners association, and they were always begging people to help out. We had many positions that went unfilled year after year. And I can tell you that today it's a complete opposite, and I feel really proud to be part of, and fortunate to live in a vibrant, connected, community-focused neighborhood. And there's many factors that have contributed to the turnaround, but the important one that finally got me involved was the sustainability group that started. And without the city's support of that program, I'm not sure that it would have gotten off the ground, and I'm not sure it would have been as successful as it's been. And I know that you're all aware of this, but with our Southern Gables sustainability, we have a community garden that's brought a ton of citizens and neighborhood folks in partnership with our school. So we've just seen a return to vibrancy of our school that, maybe in earlier years hadn't had that. We also have an annual leaf collection day where we're not just diverting, a whole dumpster full of leaves from going to the trash. They actually get composted. But we have citizens, we have neighbors who are going to elderly homes in the neighborhood, and they're also helping people who might have mobility issues. They're helping those folks rake their own lawns. We have a huge turnout. I think a lot of you have attended our summer neighborhood party festival. And hundreds of people literally show up to that every summer, and it's a direct result of our sustainability program really engaging people and getting them involved. And then more classes and outings and meetings, honestly, than I can even mention here. Everything from beekeeping to composting. So knowing that you have an agenda item tonight to request to hear all sides of the climate change conversation, I think I'd like you to keep in mind that I believe that we have a moral imperative to err on the side of an abundance of caution. Because honestly, what harm comes from doing our part to make our planet a cleaner, more livable place? And there's also significant side benefits to the city. They might be harder to quantify, but I think community is of such a value. I'm not sure how you put a price on that. And those benefits accrue to the city, they accrue to our residents and to our neighborhoods. So in closing, I would ask you to please continue to support our valuable sustainability plan that we already have in place, and please don't let the deniers convince you otherwise. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi there. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council, for allowing me a few minutes. My name is Eva Frickle. I'm a resident of Ward 4. And I'm, again, like so many other people, I'm really excited there's so many people here to just talk about the study session on climate change. In the request, she includes the statements that speakers need to represent all sides of the climate change issue. No, they don't. Climate change is real. It's happening. Studies dating back decades show ongoing warming trends that are affecting sea levels, planet temperatures, etc. Other people have outlined with vigors, more specifically on fires, etc. There is no need for City Council to debate whether or not climate change is real. Experts from all over the world agree that it is. People far more knowledgeable than me and most of the people in this room, although there are quite a few scientists here who have got the information, they agree it is real. Politicians from every single other country on the planet have taken the advice of experts and agree that it is real and needs to be addressed. Every other country in the world, sorry, microphone's playing, has signed a Paris Climate Accord. Even Syria, in the midst of civil war, has signed it because their governments have accepted, on the advice of experts, that climate change is real and society as a whole needs to address this issue. It is not the place of a city council or this city council to debate this. Worldwide consensus is that climate change is real. In addition, as somebody said, 99% of scientists in the field agree that human activity since the Industrial Revolution is at least partly responsible for the acceleration in the climate changes we are seeing. The reality of climate change is not up for debate. Oh, brilliant.
Please silence your cell phones.
You want to take this? It's my son, sorry. It's an accepted fact. There is no need to invite people from all sides, as Ms. Johnson suggests, to discuss and debate the issue. There are those people who don't believe in climate change. That is their choice, but it does not change the fact that climate change is real. Believe in whatever you want. Belief is a choice. And don't get me wrong, I understand belief and support everyone's right to believe in what they want. I come from a country whose national animal is the unicorn. Seriously, it's the unicorn. I grew up under the constant threat that the witches would get me if I didn't do what I was supposed to do. And to tell you what, at 6 years old, that's scary. Those beliefs don't change the sad fact that no one has yet managed to prove that unicorns are in fact real, and witches, that's a whole other matter. Facts override belief. Charles Darwin, one of the greatest scientific minds ever, overrode his belief in the Bible to publish The Origin of the Species. He was a very solid churchgoer, and he has well documented his conflicts on publishing his theories of evolution because it went against what he believed. But he followed the facts. So back to the facts and whether or not council needs to debate the science of climate change. With the level of scientific evidence and agreement on climate change, we must accept it as reality and move on. So again, the answer is no. There is no need for council to waste its time, waste taxpayers' dollars, and make itself a laughingstock and there's precedent. Back in the 80s and 90s, when the City Council was introducing ordinances to ban smoking in public areas, and more recently in bars and clubs because of secondhand smoke, there wasn't a study session to debate the merits of science proving that smoking and secondhand smoke was bad for you. City Council accepted the medical experts' advice that it was and moved on to ordinances to protect the residents of the city from being exposed to smoke. There was no study session that invited pro-smoking lobby to debate the reality of medical evidence, or, inviting people to say, hey, actually smoking's not bad, you should start puffing because it's good for you. No, they accepted the facts. City Council now needs to follow that precedent of accepting the majority of scientific consensus that climate change is real, I think I'm repeating myself, and move on to what it can do as the governing body of this city to address the issues that the residents face as a result of climate change. Sure, have a study session, but address what you can do to mitigate it. Thank you.
Sarah? And then the Michaels, and then it looks like Jan McGid. Good evening.
Hi.
Welcome.
I had written down a bunch of stuff, but I think that everything I have here has pretty much been touched on. My name's Sarah Nelson. I'm also a Ward 1 resident. And I did come here in part to speak about the sustainability plan. And in support of the sustainability plan, as Eva said, we used to debate whether smoking was good for you, although we weren't really debating that in the 80s and 90s, but in the 50s and 60s, you could have found a scientist to come out or a doctor to come out and say, oh, smoking's fine, it's good, it cures your cough. So as we know, there's a 99% consensus on the issue, and I also support the sustainability plan, so I'll leave it at that. I am gonna let the CCH genie out of the bottle really quickly because I didn't get a chance to speak the other night. And I know that it's out of the city's hands because the council voted to not take that land a year ago or so. But I live in one of the neighborhoods that is closest to the proposed development, just on the other side of 6. And after doing a bit of research, and it is regrettable that the government won't allow mixed-use development there. It is what it is. The McKinney-Vento Act will only allow it to be used for homeless development. What they've come up with to deal with the landfill is brilliant, the solar array. I've looked into property values, research dealing with property values in neighborhoods where homeless services have put in. I've found that there has been no effect or actually a slight increase in property values have been found. And also, I just feel it's the right thing to do. So personally, as a resident, I would support the development. I'm not angry about it. We also, at the December Ward 1 meeting, we had a business owner come and talk to us. She owned an Auntie Anne's Pretzel and another franchise in Colorado Mills. She was there to give us an update on the Colorado Mills reopening, but she mentioned that she was having trouble finding workers who can work for, what an Auntie Anne's Pretzels can pay, or any other business in the mills. Oh man, I'm getting dry mouth. Hold on.
Water.
Yeah.
What's your reward?
Fight or flight syndrome. Okay, anyways. So, a development like that with 600 units, even though it might be more dense than we want, that could provide a ready workforce for the mall, for businesses all along the Union Corridor. There'd be easy access to mass transportation. So, I just wanted to bring that up. I was thrilled to see all of my neighbors come out to speak in support of the sustainability plan, but I just wanted to add my voice to the conversation on the Coalition for the Homeless's proposed development. So thanks. Good night.
Thank you. Michael? Good evening. Welcome.
Good evening. Mayor, Council, thank you for allowing me this opportunity to speak with you. I also have the dry mouth. And it occurs to me, our attitudes towards our environment coincide with our attitudes towards the poor And it's funny that we're dealing with both these issues at the same time. Just something to think about. I want to introduce myself. My name is Michael DeRosia. I am a resident of Lakewood in Ward 4. Barb Franks and David Skilling, hello. I'm also a graduate of Green Mountain High School. I'm a Marine. I served in Desert Shield, Desert Storm. I'm a volunteer ski patroller at Loveland Ski Area. So if you get injured, I'll be happy to bring you down in a toboggan safely. I'm also a solar guy. And I am now following my dream as a small business owner in providing solar energy to both residential and commercial property owners. I want to thank Councilwoman Johnson tonight. You know, it's a good way to get us out and talking about a very important issue by suggesting a study session. And I don't want to turn this into a political event. And I would suggest instead of researching climate change, we start thinking about how we're going to work together to address it. I get that people get twisted over climate change. It's a complicated issue. For Lakewood, I want to suggest that we think about a higher standard of living, a cleaner standard of living for our community. And as part of it, since I am in the solar industry, I think I'm going to just talk about solar for a little while, if you don't mind. I simply want to address the benefits of solar energy. We know that solar photovoltaics, or PV, is clean, renewable energy. Another way to think about it is solar energy is energy independence. Yet another way to think about solar energy is as an asset. What other home improvement offers an internal rate of return or a return on investment? I want you to think about that. Finally, as a smart technology leading us to a new energy frontier. Think about your smartphone. Think about the convergence of technologies that created that device. Microprocessor, digital camera, it all came together. And at one point, the experts stopped and said, who's going to pay $600 for that phone when you can buy a Nokia for $200? Well, those experts were wrong. It was a disruptive technology. I want you to think about solar energy in the same sense. We've got other converging technologies happening at the same time. We have artificial intelligence, we have driverless cars, we have batteries that are coming. And we saw a big decrease in solar energy, about 85% in the last 10 years on photovoltaic modules. We're going to see about the same kind of decrease with batteries. And when that happens, it's really going to turn the way we think about energy. And I think anybody that's in the industry knows it's coming. So solar is disruptive. And why is solar disruptive? Because it's the cheapest form of energy. Solar energy provides a higher standard of living for Lakewood. It's going to protect our natural resources. I enjoy hiking on Green Mountain Trail just like Adam Paul does. Mayor Adam Paul. And I enjoy going out to Bear Creek Lake, and I enjoy clean water and clean air. And I think we all value those things. So let's think about what we can do together to build a more sustainable neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you. Michael Fulton? Good evening. Welcome.
My name is, I also have the dry mouth. Apparently it's going around.
Have some water, please. It's the most that's ever been drank from that.
First, I want to thank the council for your service. Just sitting here for, I guess, 2 hours has been a long time for me, and I know you do this every week, so thank you very much. I'm a mechanical engineer, a professional engineer, And I kind of focus on thermodynamics. So one of the things I think that makes it easy when you think of global warming is currently in the world we burn about 90 million barrels of oil a day. That works out to 1.8 trillion gallons a year of oil. And when you include that we also burn coal, natural gas, and we create other energy other ways, that's 3 times total the amount of energy that we use from oil. So more importantly, that's 14% more energy than we get from the sun every day. So when you go back in history, forever we've been getting energy from the sun. So all of a sudden in the last 100 years, 50 years, we've been putting 14% more energy into the atmosphere than we have forever. So that's kind of the genesis of global warming. It's not that big of a deal. You put gas in your house to heat your furnace and your house stays warm, right? It's the same concept. So the other part, so I mentioned I'm a professional engineer, so I also deal with ventilation. So in this room we have air diffusers and we have what's called an air handling unit. We bring in outside air and it changes, the amount changes based on the CO2 in the room. And studies have been done that if the CO2 goes up by 400 parts per million, which our cognitive scores go down. If we're to be tested cognitively, we actually can think basically 21% less efficiently at 800 parts per million than at 400 parts per million, which is with the background currently. So we are at the current rate of fossil fuel use, we're increasing the parts per million at 5 parts per million per year. So if we look at that extra 400 parts per million, that's talking 80 years. So in 80 years, my kids will be able to think 21% less effectively than they can now based on the current rate. So I highly applaud Lakewood's sustainability goals, and I just want to say thank you for what you're doing.
Thank you. Ms. McGid? Good evening, welcome.
Good evening. Thank you, Mayor, City Council members, for allowing us to speak tonight. My name is Jan McGid. I'm a 35-year resident of Ward 4, and I've just loved Lakewood all this time. I am very proud of the sustainability plan that you all, well, most of you developed. It was a lot of hard work and long nights and diverse opinions in that process. I'm really proud of that process. And I just want you to know that I support the plan as it was written, as it was developed by so many people that now we don't need to go back and relitigate it, to go back and review, undermine it. We need to implement it. So I had a lot more I wanted to say, but it's already been said several times tonight. So thank you for your time.
Right, thank you. Ms. Ferrafino? And then I have the Honorable Shakti and the Honorable Max Tyler. Good evening, welcome.
Good evening, council members. Thank you for your time this evening. My name is Ali Ferrafino. I'm the Jefferson County Community Organizer with Conservation Colorado Protégete program. We are the state's largest member-based environmental organization with over 30,000 members. Time and time again, our members make it clear that climate change is an issue that they want to ensure our air, water, land, people are protected. While Conservation Colorado is not taking a stance on a specific policy this evening, I'm here to express the urgency and importance of Lakewood's continued leadership on sustainability and climate change. Colorado is vulnerable to rising temperatures, and we've already begun to see the direct impacts of our changing climate. Colorado's snowpack is at a 30-year record low, impacting our water supply and ecosystems. We have faced hotter summers, increasing the formation of ground level ozone, which directly impacts the health of city residents, such as those in Lakewood. If you look at our mountains, our wildlife, our wildfire season is increasing in length, risking property damage and physical harm to our neighboring Colorado communities. Climate change is more than a scientific consensus, and immediate action is imperative. As already noted this evening, 97% or more of actively publishing climate scientists see that climate warming trends over the past century are due to human activity, something that the Lakewood residents here and elsewhere have made abundantly clear. As an organizer in Jefferson County, spending the majority of my time in Lakewood, I have heard climate change is at the forefront of many residents' minds. Lakewood City Council must remain a strong leader in its local dedication on climate issues. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thanks for coming out. Good evening. Bored on a Monday night?
I think this is the first time I've been back.
Welcome back.
I'm Shakti, formerly on Lakewood City Council, now a candidate for the State House. And I'm here to talk about the idea of discussing different ideas about climate change. And on its face, that sounds like a reasonable idea, but actually it's not. And that's because of the context. 20 years ago, I studied at CU, and when I was there, insurance companies were already changing their rates based on climate change models. And they were doing that because it affected their bottom line. So where we have 99% of scientists agreeing, the political conversation has been slower. But at this point, the vast majority of Americans and the vast majority of people in Colorado agree with the scientists. One of the things I'm most proud of during my time on Lakewood City Council is passing the sustainability plan that so many people had put their energy into. And so I would like to see the plan implemented, and I think that having this kind of discussion that's proposed would be moving backwards and rehashing a conversation that's actually settled. So, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Tyler. Good evening.
Good evening, Council. My name is Max Tyler. I'm a 30-plus year resident of Two Creeks, Ward 2. Usually I don't show up with a hat, but I want to make a note on this hat. It's the American Association for the Advancement of Science. I got this hat because I became a member of this organization. It's been around for a little while, about 1840s or so, okay? And they published Science Magazine, one of the most erudite science journals in this country. And I actually wanted to download some information on genetic engineering through Casper-Cas9, and I had to join. So that's what I did. That's why I'm wearing a hat. So the basic statement I want to make is the climate's changing. We're causing it. It's a real problem, and we darn well better do something about it. I'm not alone in making that statement. And if Councilor Johnson wants to look at all sides, I'd like to make a few suggestions of people we can talk to about bringing in and talking to us about this. One of them would be the International Panel on Climate Change. That's the conservative organization on climate change. You may be surprised to hear me say that. It is the conservative organization on climate change because they need a consensus to put out these papers and these reports with 99% of the scientists agreeing with it. You're not going to get to on the bleeding edge with that sort of a thing. Now, I know an engineer who works at NREL, who I've worked with a lot over the last decade in the legislature, who's gone through that in great detail and could perhaps present it. That's the conservative side. Somebody mentioned Jim Hansen a little bit earlier from NASA. He was the director of NASA. He's not so conservative. But let me tell you, he's running around with his hair on fire because he's really worried that we've got some issues out there we have to solve right now because we're in real trouble. Well, guess whose model has been the most accurate over the last 10 years? James Hansen. So the most accurate climate change model out there is much more radical and much more accurate than put out by the IPCC. Let me list some of the other organizations that might be willing to come out and talk to us. And all of these organizations, I could read this 3-paragraph statement, but they all basically say what I said. The climate's changing, we're causing it, it's an existential issue for human civilization, we darn well better do something about it. Now here's the organizations. Oh, right, American Association for the Advancement of Science, American Chemical Society, American Geophysical Union, American Institute of Biological Sciences, American Meteorological Society, American Society of Agronomy, American Society of Plant Biologists, American Statistical Association, Association of Ecological Research Centers, Botanical Society of America, Crop Science Society of America, Ecological Society of America, Natural Science Collections Alliance, Organization of Biological Field Stations, Society for Industrial and Applied Mathematics, Society for Systematic Biologists, Soil Science Society for America, American Corporation for Atmospheric Research. Oh, and if you want to talk about corporations, you could bring in somebody out here from Starbucks, who sees their entire market disappearing because coffee is going to be disappearing because of climate change. And there are a lot of other corporations that are really following what's going on in climate change and adjusting their bottom line to match, including, by the way, Walmart, which is not my favorite operation, but that's okay. Now, let me throw out a couple other possibilities. We could bring in all the scientists who have published in reputable scientific peer-reviewed journals challenges to the foundational theories of climate change. We could bring those people in. That number is pretty darn close to zero, if not zero. I have been asking people, the deniers, for years to show me a single peer-reviewed scientific paper that challenges the basic theories. It's not out there. This is basically middle school science. And finally, to wrap up, Ms. Johnson, if you want to find somebody that's going to live in that kind of Peter Pan world, that's really possible. The Koch brothers paid for somebody to come out and engage on the negative side of the debate, the denier side of the debate, at something I sponsored in the legislature last year. I'm sure you could get back in touch with the Koch brothers and they'd find somebody in that Peter Pan world.
Wrap it up, please.
Thank you.
All right, that exhausts the list of folks who signed up. Thank you, everybody, for signing up. And Mr. Johnson, would you like to speak?
Yes.
Good evening, welcome.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for letting me come. I did not sign up, but something...
You're fine. You came in late. Don't worry.
A couple of things I'd like to point out. I provided the article for Councilor Johnson to quote. It was written by Lee Gerhardt, Dr. Lee Gerhardt, a professor emeritus from CSU, hardly a wacko. And his article was just saying to go a little slow. She had mentioned getting some other people in. I have 3 in mind. They're all PhD scientists. They're acknowledged. They say there are some problems with what were presented. They're not saying that the earth is cooling, but there are things we should be aware of, and they promise. I'll pay for one of them to come, and they all 3 promise if they come, they will spend no more than 45 minutes, and they will present things from published, verified articles already by government, some of them. And just pointing that out, and we're giving away a lot of our freedoms with this movement, and I just encourage us to spend a little bit of time thinking about it. And they would take less time and waste less of your time than what we've spent already tonight. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Anybody else? Mr. Barthel. You did not follow the rules. Come on down.
Some time ago, since I lived and worked in South Africa, Johannesburg, many times I took the train from Johannesburg to Cape Town. Johannesburg at that time was the biggest city in the Southern Hemisphere. Cape Town, 1 million at that time. Now 40 million living in South Africa, in Cape Town, Johannesburg, Cape Town. They're running out of water.
You pull the microphone close, thank you.
They're running out of water April the 12th. This can be substantiated at the Time magazine that just came out. I found it out a long time before that. Every household is limited to 13 gallons a day for drinking, washing, eating, and flushing. 13 gallons a day is not very much at all, unless they have a significant big storm before April the 12th. It would only prolong it. They are now in contract negotiations to bring container ships with water. They're also starting new plans to convert ocean water into usable water. That is climate change. South Africa hasn't had any significant rain or precipitation in the last few years. This comes even worse now. Look at California. No participation. You're looking about the hills coming down with mud because there's nothing to hold it back. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. All right, anybody else? All right, I'm going to close public comment. So, Councilor Harrison, did you want to speak or did you want to? Okay. Yes, ma'am.
You know, I think that there's a lot of discussion about whether or not climate change exists. And what I see is the beauty of the sustainability program and what it does in community building. I don't care, honestly, what causes the climate change. What I love is what it does to our community and how it builds each other. When I see the beauty of what happened in Southern Gables and I see that neighborhood coming together and with a common focus and a common goal, it could be climate change, it could be snowflakes. I don't care what it is as long as it brings us together closer. I would be really opposed to having this study session to go back to the start and looking at this all over again. I support the sustainability program and would like to continue it. Thank you.
Councilor Abel?
Do we want to have comments on the proposal now, or shall we wait until the...
I'd prefer to wait so we can follow in line.
Thank you, please.
Sit under general business.
Thank you.
Okay. So just for folks who are here, and bear with us, it's actually the first under general business. So we have a consent agenda, which we'll get through rather fast as I look at the group. And then we can go in. So if you do have to leave, I really want to thank everybody who did come out and your thoughtful dialogue tonight. It's much appreciated. So with that, the use of the consent agenda has been made to expedite council action. It contains both resolutions, and on this one, only resolutions. Any council member may request an item on the consent agenda be removed for separate discussion and action under general business. Will the city clerk please read the items on the consent agenda into the record?
With the removal of item 9 from the consent agenda consists of items 10 through 12 inclusive. Item 10, Resolution 2018-8, establishing projects and project funding levels for the 2018 Capital Improvement and Preservation Program, Neighborhood Participation Program. Item 11, Resolution 2018-9, authorizing condemnation of an easement for a sidewalk at 935 Sheridan Boulevard for the Sheridan Boulevard Improvement Project. And item 12, approving the minutes of the December 11th regular city council meeting, and these would be the revised ones at your places tonight, and the January 8th, 2018 minutes of the regular city council meeting.
Great. Thank you. I'll now open the public hearing or public comment period on items 10 and 11. Nobody's signed up. Seeing none, I'll close, and we'll bring in a presentation, I think, on item 10. Ms. Boehm, Principal Planner. Good evening. Welcome. It's going to be under general business.
Well, thank you, Mayor and City Council members. I'm Holly Bain with the Comprehensive Planning and Research Division, and I'm here tonight to give you a quick, I hope, background and update on our neighborhood participation program. I want to start by just providing a brief update on it, our selection process and criteria for the program, a status of our past projects, and then staff's recommendation for the 2018 projects. The Neighborhood Participation Program, or NPP, began in 1992. Since its inception, we have funded 142 projects citywide. The program is funded with $160,000 for construction with an additional $20,000 for project contingencies and design work. There are 4 project requirements. First, it must have a general benefit to an entire neighborhood and not just a single entity or a few people. It must not significantly increase city maintenance requirements. Funding levels per project cannot exceed $60,000, and the project cannot currently be funded in the 5-year CIP budget. It is a selective project program each year. We generally open the program in September and review applications and evaluate by staff team from planning, community resources, and public works. The projects are then scored based on a weighted criteria, which I'll discuss in a moment, and then the projects are ranked by staff and then presented to City Council for your approval. There are 5 criteria that staff reviews and looks at when analyzing each project application. The first is the benefit that we see the project bringing to the community versus the cost of the project, the health and safety of the project, the amount of neighborhood support or neighborhood contributions that we see with the application, the compliance of the project with the master plan, the comprehensive master plan, as well as the community resources master plan, and whether or not the project significantly increases maintenance requirements. So from 2014, we're proud to say that our pathway connection between Sutherland Park and Main Lake has been finalized and is open now, a concrete path, which I think we've heard a lot of really positive things about it, so I'm excited. From 2016, we have 3 projects that will be completed this year. In June, we will complete the steps and the sidewalk connection at Houghton Park. And we are now underway with the community outreach and have developed a draft master plan for the improvements at Hilltop Park, and we anticipate that being completed in the fall. And our final outstanding project from 2016 is the picnic shelter at Glennon Heights, which will be installed in June of this year. From last year, we have completed the bike racks in O'Kane Park. We have installed the Little Free Library and the dog waste station in the Morningstar neighborhood. We have installed the 4 park benches and recycling containers in Addenbrook Park. 2 projects which will be completed this year are the art sculpture in Walker Branch Park. The art sculpture has been selected, as depicted in this picture here, and it will be installed this spring. And the sidewalk connection between on Robb Street between 18th and 19th Avenue will be completed in 2018. The community garden at Foothills Elementary School has been completed, and it will be planted by the students this spring. And the additional horseshoe pit and benches in Ritchie Park have been installed, and the horseshoe pits will be also landscaped this spring and the irrigation put in. And our final project from 2017 is the Little Free Library in Lockmore, in the Lockmore Neighborhood Park. For this year, we received 12 applications, and they totaled over $500,000 in estimated construction costs. Staff has reviewed them and is recommending to City Council 4 projects that total an estimated about $168,000 in construction costs. Those projects include, the map before you shows you the distribution of the projects that we received throughout the city. So the 4 projects that staff recommending to you this year are a new playground at U-Trail Park, as well as a couple of picnic benches, an outdoor environmental learning classroom at South Lakewood Elementary that will include a Little Free Library, perhaps some seating nooks, and a nature paths. We are supporting and approving improvements to the community garden at Green Gables Elementary School. These improvements are small in nature, but they add up. They will include like small signage, some additional trees, and some benches. And we're also approving phase 2 of the Rooney Ranch Elementary School playground upgrades. To summarize, we're recommending the 4 projects just presented to you for a total of about approximately $168,000 in construction costs. So tonight, staff is asking City Council to approve the resolution adopting the recommended 2018 Neighborhood Participation Program projects. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to reopen the public hearing because I got a look that I did not do that properly. Nobody's still indicated a wish to speak, but all right, seeing none. Anybody? Okay, seeing none, I close the public comment period. And just a couple quick comments. We got a really nice email from the Morningstar community thanking you and the staff for all the work. They really appreciate that. I wanted to make sure I passed that on. I don't know how this Hodson Park keeps getting improvements. But I must always say, as a disclaimer, it has nothing to do with our city manager, Kathy Hodson. And Ute Trail Park, that fire truck has been there since I was young enough to play on it. So it was probably before, and I actually played on it. So, wow, it's time to do that. So thank you. Councilor Franks.
Well, for those of you who know, I garden at Ute Trail Community Garden, and so that little piece of equipment gets roasty hot, and we've seen a number of little hands and feet get burned there. So I really am excited to see that get replaced, and really wanted just to these projects mean a lot to the communities. On the path from Main Reservoir to Sutherland Shire Park, there was some community concern, but when I got out there and walked it 3 different times, got to meet a lot of people and saw what a benefit it was, benefit to people in the condominiums who didn't have a connection to be able to walk. We had people with walkers, strollers, and I just wanted to say thanks. I know that sometimes they seem small, but they really make a big difference in people's lives, so thank you.
Councilor Gutwein?
Yeah, I completely agree. I can't say enough great things about this program and the impact that it's had in our neighborhood with the Green Gables Community Garden. And just seeing all these projects throughout the community is really exciting, and it makes a real difference in people's lives. So very excited about the projects you've supported. Thank you.
Councilor Abel?
Thank you, Mayor. It thrills me a great deal to see that 3 of the 4 projects are centered around elementary schools. The best investments we can make in our community are those that benefit kids, and these monies do double duty by strengthening the neighborhoods and making these neighborhood schools the center of our community. So thank you very much.
Councilor Johnson?
Thank you, Mayor. Holly, that was a nice presentation. I noticed on some of the projects that were turned down, one of them was for planting new trees someplace. I think it was in Sanderson Gulch. I'm just curious, if people in the area wanted to purchase trees themselves, or else purchase them somehow through the city and plant them themselves, is there a process that they can do? There was an issue in Ward 1 where a sewer system had torn up a street pretty badly, and several trees were taken out. And there might be an appetite for that neighborhood to actually purchase trees and plant them. Since it's on public land, what are the guidelines for that?
Well, I would definitely encourage people that want to do that to check with city staff. One of the concerns with the Sanderson Gulch is that it would be in the gulch, and we do want to maintain the gulch and make sure that it functions appropriately. We've also found many times that with trees planted near a sewer line, or a lot of times they will get into the line and damage the line. So we really want to make sure that the right type of trees are being planted as well as in the correct location. So I would just have anybody check with city staff before they go about doing that.
Okay, so it would work under the right.
In the right circumstances, but the first thing to do is check with staff.
Perfect, that's good to know. Also, one of the projects that was turned down was for a sidewalk connecting on 20th between Klein and Kipling. Can that neighborhood reapply again, or is there any grant money for that? That is actually a pretty big issue for the people that live there, not having a sidewalk on 20th.
There is no other grant money that I'm aware of that would fund that for this year, but we do always encourage neighborhoods to reapply if the application does meet the project requirements. So, yes.
Thank you.
And Councillor Johnson, I would just add also for the reapplication, staff is more than happy to have discussions with the applicants as to what could help them reach their goal the following year.
So in other words, how to submit a more viable plan next time, word it a little better, that kind of thing.
Sure.
Perfect.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
And I generally try to communicate that when I send out my letters, letting applicants know that they did not receive grants this year, to reach out and work with us.
Perfect. Thank you.
Councillor Vincent?
Yeah, Holly, there was a recommendation for the Newland Park to go to CDBG funds. Do we need to do anything to follow up on that process, or how does that work?
At this point, no. I'm sure that our community resources team will be reaching out to the neighborhood as they move forward in the design phase for that.
Okay, I'll let the neighborhood know. Thanks.
All right. Councillor Skilling, could I have a motion, please?
Well, just 1 second, because this might dramatically change things. I think that if it's possible, my son would probably like that fire truck if you're going to remove it, because he's also played on it a lot.
Talk to Ross. He may.
And then the second quick point, I'd probably speak on behalf of all of the Rooney elementary kids. If we could incorporate Star Wars somehow, that would be cool too. So with that said, does that change? Do we need an amendment for Star Wars?
Fire engine up there.
All right. Mayor Paul, I move for the adoption of Resolution 2018-8, establishing projects and project funding levels for the 2018 Capital Improvement and Preservation Program, Neighborhood Participation Program. Whereas the City of Lakewood has established the Neighborhood Participation.
Perfect.
Okay, good.
Thank you. Well done. Well done.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please cast your votes. And I saw Ross said he wants the fire engine. He put it in. Passes 11 ayes, 0 nays. Good job. Thank you very much.
Excuse me, Mayor Paul, we actually need a vote on the consent agenda, which that was a part of. So if we could have a separate vote on item.
So,
Mayor Paul.
So considering I polled 9, that's why I went to individual, or polled, item 9.
I'm sorry. Thank you.
So, I don't read.
So we'll still adopt them individually. I think that's sufficient.
That's certainly sufficient.
Okay. Ross, what year did you put that in? 87. There you go. All right. Will the clerk please read item 11 into the record? Already did that. So item 11, Mr. Dorr, please come on up. Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of City Council. Once again, Larry Dorr, City of Lakewood Finance Director and City Treasurer. Before you tonight, item 11, Resolution 9, authorizes condemnation actions. And condemnation is a serious matter. And so thank you for the opportunity to talk to you about the matter and also about the project that it relates to. Of course, no two condemnation matters are the same. And some can impact neighborhoods and residences, but some don't. So let me talk a little bit about the project first and then the action at hand. Just to orient you, this is a sidewalk project in Ward 2 in Lakewood along Sheridan Boulevard at the border with the city and county of Denver. In 2015, City Council authorized funds, $2.2 million in funds for the construction of this sidewalk. There is no sidewalk present at this time along this corridor, 6/10 of a mile of sidewalk construction that will be completed. The sidewalk requires the city to acquire property rights across 14 different properties on Sheridan Boulevard. The city has successfully negotiated with all property owners but one, and we have actually not had disagreement with this property owner as to the price of the property or the installation of the facilities at hand. In fact, the property owner and their residents will benefit greatly from the installation of the sidewalks. I should have mentioned in the cost, the city has the opportunity to receive $800,000 in federal highway funds through the Colorado Department of Transportation. So this will be a very meaningful improvement in Ward 2 along Sheridan Boulevard. However, this particular property happens to be a 52-unit non-owner occupied apartment complex. And when you get into commercial properties, things get a little bit more complicated in terms of getting real property entitlements. The city's been in negotiation and contact with the property owners now for nearly 9 months. And what's complicating the matter is that the owners, which are EWGP Associates of Sherman Oaks, California, their property is encumbered by a mortgage. That mortgage is held by the Colorado Housing and Finance Authority, also known as CHAFA. It's a very large organization, and commercial property loans and mortgages are complex. They come with many different loan covenants and requirements, and it isn't a lender like a local bank. It's a much larger government-sponsored organization. So they tend to move a little bit more slowly, unfortunately, in allowing a release of the encumbrance of this section of property along Sheridan Boulevard. It would be a 10-foot deep easement and 100 feet long in front of this particular property. In addition, the property is restricted under Section 8 housing requirements by the United States Housing and Urban Development. So the city is not in dispute with the owners about the price or the need for the project, but really just getting through the real property entitlements phase. And we will continue to negotiate and move forward with the property owner, but what this condemnation action will authorize is for the city to seek immediate possession so that our engineers and our constructors can move forward with the project and preserve these grant funds from the Colorado Department of Transportation. We can't proceed at such a pace where those funds could otherwise be used by the CDOT for other projects across Colorado. So those grant funds can be somewhat in jeopardy over time. Additionally, we need to get these construction elements moving because we can't do that during the coming winter months of later in 2018. So we want to get started on those so we can have the improvements in. If I might, Madam Clerk, would you turn on the document camera? And I just want to show the current state of the sidewalk along Sheridan Boulevard and then answer any questions that council may have, and just show the map for those who are in chambers tonight or watching on TV who may not have seen council's packet. So,
wow, it's getting crazy up here.
that happened in our Budget and Audit Committee earlier tonight, and we had a little accident in there too. This is the address 935 Sheridan Boulevard, and the rectangle to the right of the screen depicts the easement needed for the installation of improvements. And you'll notice in the resolution that it would also authorize a temporary easement, which is the pink line just to the left. And that's so that the contractor can get in and do construction installing the sidewalk. Again, this sidewalk will bring a benefit to these residents at this location, and I'm sure they look forward to the improvement. But again, we've just got to clear the entitlements that are in place by HUD and CHAFA. And then let me show one more picture. Again, there is no sidewalk there at the moment. We're not widening anything or rebuilding anything at all. This is a fairly treacherous part of Sheridan Boulevard for the city's residents here. It's very difficult to walk down these paths, and of course we have children and people of all ages moving up and down Sheridan Boulevard. And I know that many of you have seen this in our budget presentations in the past through Public Works. So with that, Mr. Mayor, I'd be happy to entertain any questions, and I do have our property management folks and Public Works engineers here in chambers.
Thank you. Appreciate it. I'm going to open the public hearing on Resolution 2018-9. Nobody has signed up. Seeing nobody, I will close the public hearing and go to council questions. I'm going to start with our Ward 2 folks. This is home for them. Councilor Vincent.
Yes, thank you. This is a project that's been a long time coming. I am far from being excited about the method that we're going through, but also I've dealt with a lot of things within the ward with CHAFA and Section 8 housing. This is a horrible intersection, a horrible problem. And I've had many talks, and I do understand that there's not an issue about taking the property, about the residents not getting something of added value there. So although it goes against a lot of things that I probably in my gut believe, I think I would support this because I think it's necessary to get the project moving forward.
Thank you, Councilor LeBeer.
Yeah, I'd just like to add that, first of all, I live right near this, and I get the pleasure of driving by it every day, and I think this is much desired in the neighborhood, so I think this will be a great addition if we can see some sidewalks, which I'm told could be completed even this year, so that's exciting to hear. I think this will go a long way to just helping out with beautification on Sheridan and helping with the revitalization efforts that many of us are pursuing, and I'm very much in support of it. And my understanding is, as Director Dorr mentioned, is that, yeah, because of the complications, this is a way to sort of cut through some of that red tape that might be holding up the project. So very much looking forward to voting yes on this.
Thank you, Councilor Skilling.
And I just wanted to comment that piggybacking on that, I went out to the property over the weekend just to actually walk it to the best of my ability, although it was really wet and you couldn't really walk it. So I did not know until just now that Mr. Dorr's presentation that this was not a controversial issue, that there wasn't a dispute. So that's great to hear. So this is, as Jacob mentioned, Councilman LeBeer mentioned, this is a technical issue that the owner is supportive of this eminent domain. So thank you for that clarification.
Great. Thank you, Councilor Franks.
So I did just want to clarify, though, it's different than eminent domain. It's really a condemnation. The difference being for people in the audience when they hear the terms, I just want to make sure we all understand that way when we hear the terms later. So condemnation versus...
The city is taking condemnation action by using its authority of eminent domain.
Okay.
They're essentially one and the same.
I thought so, but I just wanted to make sure on that. And like everyone, the other folks here, I've been on that path multiple times driving that. It is a dangerous spot, and I am glad to hear. I expect we would see the property owner's representative here if there was anyone who was opposed to that. And that's the one thing that gives me comfort, is that they haven't dispatched someone here to oppose the effort. So thank you.
Councilor Roybal.
Thank you, Mayor. Just wanted to emphasize this sidewalk is coming from 10th Avenue all the way up to the 6th Avenue Bridge. And it's on the north side of the 6th Avenue Bridge. So we're doing some major improvements along the Sheridan corridor. And I do support this, and I supported it 3 years ago, and I want to bring it forward. So I'm glad it's coming to its conclusion. Thank you.
Well said. Councilor Bida.
I just want to point out that there are certain times when there is an appropriate use for eminent domain, and there are other times when it's not. This is one of the times when it's appropriate. That's not to say that there won't be other times when we'll look at that issue and have a different result.
Thank you. Councilor Gutwein.
Thank you. Like everyone has said, it's not something we should ever take lightly to use eminent domain, but in this circumstance, like you said, each one is different, and based on the circumstances of this, and then also the benefit it's going to bring to our community to make a safe sidewalk along Sheridan and the revitalization. I fully support this and excited to see it happen.
Councilor Abel.
I'm certainly not a advocate of eminent domain, but in this case, there's no arm twisting going on. We're only unraveling a little bit of red tape that the property owner had difficulty with. So I'm certainly in support of this.
You, Councilor Vincent.
Two Creeks would like to thank the entire city council for this. Thank you.
All right, Councilor
The
Bear.
entire city council would like to say you're welcome.
Councilor Bear, would you make a motion? Oh, Councilor Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd just like to say I am comfortable in supporting this. And I understand the issue of eminent domain, but this is appropriate this time. Yeah.
All right, Councilor LeBear.
Yeah, I'd like to move that resolution 2018-9 authorizing condemnation of an easement for a sidewalk at 935 Sheridan Boulevard for the Sheridan Boulevard Improvement Project. And I ask for a second.
Second.
Right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Cast your votes. All right, passes 11 ayes, 0 nays. Thank you, Mr. Dorr. And then item 12, there's no presentation. Yes, thank you. Councilor LeBear, could you make a motion just to accept the council minutes for December 11th and January 8th?
Sure, Mayor Paul. I move to approve the minutes of city council meetings on December 11th, 2017 and January 8th, 2018.
Second?
Second.
All right, motion and a second. Please cast your votes. Thank you. Display. There we go. Show. And that passes 11 ayes, 0 nays. All right, we're on to general business, so we're almost to discussion topics. Item 9 was pulled. Because I'm pulling myself off of the proposed committee. And there could be some other changes as to some other council members that had signed up to be part of this and may do some switching. So I will turn over to Councilman Abel.
I would request that we table resolution 2018-7, creating a city council ad hoc advisory committee to review and recommend amendments to the provisions of the Lakewood Municipal Code regarding campaign finance. As the mayor said, I understand there are some changes in council people who might be willing to participate, and the wording of the resolution as it stands does not accurately reflect the consensus of council from 2 weeks ago, I believe.
Maybe a little bit longer, but
or a little bit longer, give or take.
All right, so that would be a request to table that and come back. Ms. Hodson, please advise.
The next regular meeting would be February 26th. That's a joint meeting with our school board, but this seems like it wouldn't be a long extended conversation.
Right. Councilor Abel, is that acceptable?
Very much so.
Okay. Mr. Cox, do you need a motion to continue that or just pull it? We're okay.
With the request to table it to a date certain, I think you're fine where you are.
I so move if it wasn't clear before.
Let's have a motion just so the record is clear.
Somebody second.
Second.
Thank you. Motion and a second. Any discussion? Please cast your votes. All right. Passes 11 ayes, 0 nays. Okay. Topics for upcoming agendas. I will turn it over to Councilor Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. Oh my, I owe you all an apology. I could have saved you all a lot of time. I actually was going to pull this off of the agenda and just didn't get it done in time. When I look at all of our priorities that need to be addressed, the timing isn't there for this to go forward either now or probably maybe never. The time for discussion, it looks like, is long past. A couple things I'd like to address. The first one, Sandy Weathers made a comment that I had said that when I was in nursing school or something, when the earth was cooling, That was meant as a joke. I said it tongue in cheek. Obviously, that was taken literally, and I will certainly be more careful with the way that I joke from now on. This never was an attempt to change or to attack the sustainability plan. I'm sorry that that was perceived that way. That was never the intention. I strongly support the sustainability plan. Who wouldn't? I mean, really? Come on. And I never really intended for it to be a debate. Okay. I thought that I've been on council now for 6 years. We've done a lot of things with sustainability. And I think it would have been nice had people on all sides of the perspective actually had an opportunity to come and give different sides and points of view. It was never done formally that way. That was all that this was intended to do. It is our responsibility and our sacred duty to seek out and ask for all sides on every issue, not just this. Would you expect less of us when we cast a vote to only be given a certain kind or amount of information and to make a vote based on that rather than to actively seek what all the perspectives are? I don't think so. I hope not. You, the people, should not only expect this standard, but demand that of this body. Honest public policy demands this, that we are looking at all perspectives. That was all this was intended to do. Obviously, this grew legs, and I apologize. I had no idea that this was going to be taken the way that it was. None of us should fear hearing what other people have to say. Just because you might think that they see something differently or have a different perspective, please be open-minded. You expect that of us, to listen to all sides. We shouldn't fear what anybody has to say. And with that, I am pulling this off of the agenda. It is obviously not something that this council could or should go forward with. And there's definitely not interest in the community. It was never designed to create this kind of commotion. I apologize.
Thank you, Councillor Johnson. Councillor Skilling?
So we had close to 2 hours of people coming out and speaking, which I very much appreciated. But rather than just pull it, which that isn't relevant to what I'm about to say, I suggest that we do have a study session in the future, but that we look at ways that we can actually do the things that we heard about tonight. Of great interest to me, and this is something we'll be talking about on Saturday, Mr. DeRosa, and I'm not picking favorites just because he's from my ward, but he mentioned solar. We had a couple of speakers tonight talk about the importance of solar. Well, it just so happens there are some areas and in Lakewood, especially in Ward 4, that might make good spots to have things like solar or wind or whatever it is. And I think that that's something that the community has really wanted. So if we're going to be bold and bring in new ideas, I think that that's something that we could actually take a look at, that we could incentivize rather than just building more strip malls and expensive houses. Why don't we do that? I mean, think about that project. You hear infrastructure every day in the news. They don't actually do anything. They just talk about infrastructure. We could actually lead the way. We take our sustainability plan and say, look, we mean it. And we're going to build whatever it is, solar, wind, you guys name it. And that's for a study session for us to name that project. So I think let's use tonight and all the time and effort and everyone coming out and Councilwoman Johnson putting forward this and starting this discussion. Let's take the big positive out of this and let's do something, as Mayor Paul says, let's be bold. And let's have a study session. I would just say that I'd like to lead that study session with looking at how we as a city can do things like solar farms, if that's even possible, or bring in solar businesses or renewable energy businesses, something of that nature.
Thank you. So I think the water messed up your button because you keep turning on and off, just FYI. So if I don't call on you or Karen, let me know.
Actually, I did that on purpose because what I did was I made sure the no button doesn't work for Dave anymore. He can only vote supporting from now on.
Let's take advantage of that.
Counselor Abel.
Thank you. I was more than willing to let this issue go away as Ms. Johnson had offered, but Mr. Skilling makes a great point. Sustainability is preventative health care for our planet. And it's also preventative health care for our children and adults. So I would be very much in favor of advancing ideas that we might add to the sustainability plan. Thank you for that offer, Mr. Skilling.
Counselor Gutwein.
Thank you. Well, I'm just want to say not many of you are left from that came this evening, but just wow, and thank you so much for the passion in our community and stepping up for this important cause that we all share and value. It was a truly inspirational night, and we got to hear a lot. I feel like I got smarter after listening to all of that. So, you know, there's not a decision that I make in my life or in my day that doesn't think about how I'm going to impact my children. And to me, that's what sustainability is all about. We heard about that from even some kids, which I thought was really moving. And like I said, this was just an inspirational evening to me. I believe in the importance and that it's critical that we act on this and act on it now. I'm incredibly excited about the progress that we've made and the progress outlined in the sustainability plan. And after tonight, I'm really optimistic that we're going to make meaningful progress together. I'm also thrilled with the outcome that now we're talking about, hey, let's have a study session and talk about how we can make meaningful progress together. I think that's really how the plan has been all along. It's been focusing on nonpartisan. We've not gotten bogged down in ideology. We've found common ground, worked on things we all care about, like clean air, clean water, efficiency, reducing our energy bills. These are values that we all share, and I'm thrilled that we're going to move forward together on this issue. So thank you all so much for your support.
Councilor LeBaire.
As someone who introduced some language regarding sustainability and how we can increase, making sure that we're increasing our efforts to watch out for or to address our smog and clean air issues, you can imagine that I'm supportive of having a further discussion about sustainability and further efforts that we can make to make our community even more sustainable. But I also want to comment, just an FYI, I was watching a documentary the other day called Chasing Coral, which you can see on Netflix. And at the end of it, they're applauding some communities that have done a lot with sustainability efforts. And one of the communities that they mention on there is Lakewood, Colorado. So I was impressed to see that and surprised, actually. So I encourage you to watch it. It's a good documentary, and then you can see that they're excited about some of the efforts we're making here in Lakewood, and hopefully we continue to do so. So I just wanted to let you all in on that. So thank you.
Great. Councilor Franks.
I just wanted to add what I'm finding most encouraging is that really citizens aren't waiting for us. They are on Facebook setting up groups where they are sharing unused items, finding new homes for things, sharing services. So I definitely want us to get together and be big and be bold. But at the community garden, we teach other people how to compost in their backyard. You know, we teach seed sharing and starting. And so what I love about all of this is that it's connecting neighbors to reach out to other neighbors. And so I think that that's also very exciting and maybe doesn't get all the big press, but that's where I see communities really pulling together. And our Green Mountain Sustainability unfortunately has their meetings on a Monday night, which kind of makes it a little hard with my job here to go, but I did on our 1/5 Monday go, and what a wonderful group of people. And there's someone there, I'm going to call her out by name, Emily Post. She is inspiring with the amount of waste she doesn't produce, and that's another thing. So I have a new level. My husband has not thrilled with Emily because now we have increased recycling responsibilities. But I wanted to just encourage everybody that came. There's so many things you can do in your own communities, and while we look for some of the bigger opportunities. So thank you.
Yes, they do beer trivia on Monday nights. Where would you rather be? or kombucha. So let me throw this out there. So we have a second reading coming up on energy efficiency performance. We also have our retreat. So there might be some other proposals pertaining to sustainability, and we have a sustainability update. So I'm thinking we wait until we see what council priorities are at the retreat, and we get a better idea of when the sustainability update is, along with some of the other things, and that's when we tie this discussion in. Is that fair to go forward? Okay. And I just close with, again, thank you to the folks who stayed. I have learned one thing, it's important that we create this community, and we heard a lot about what it's done, and it's really empowered the community. And sustainability means so much to so many different people, whether it's just neighbors getting together, whether it's energy efficiency, but it's a good thing. And it's a good thing, not so much the why or the how, but let's keep making progress and working together. And that's been great. And I can tell you, as the mayor, and Jonathan Wachtel is here, we get pressure, a lot of pressure, that we don't go far enough and that we go too far. So I think we've tried to strike a nice balance that really reflects the community and honors the plan and moves us forward. So thank you to everybody. Always great to hear from the kids, or the young adults, I should say. And so that's how we will move forward. Is that cool, Ms. Hodson?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, thanks. Jacob, you're up next.
So if you look at the item I requested for consideration, under our Title 10 ordinances and code, we have a ordinance as it relates to unattended vehicles. It's illegal to leave your vehicle unattended and running in the city of Lakewood. Other cities have added language that add additional provisions that go further, that aren't just an anti-theft provision, as is the unattended vehicle ordinance, but actually go a little bit further, that also address the pollution that's exhibited by vehicles idling for long periods of time. So what I've asked all of you to consider is us addressing this issue by adding additional language to the provision that would limit the length of time a vehicle can idle. And I'd just like to add that a lot of cities and municipalities around Colorado and the country have adopted these ordinances. The EPA has a really long list of various cities that have made similar language changes to their code. So this wouldn't be out of the norm. Even beautiful towns like Johnstown, Colorado have things like that. So I've been encouraged to add this as something that we speak about at Saturday's retreat. So I'm happy to entertain that if all of you would like to do that instead of moving it forward as just another agenda item. So thanks.
Thank you, sir. And thank you for your flexibility. Councilor Abel.
Well, I was about to remove my request to speak. I was going to suggest that this fits hand in glove with what we've been talking about, so perhaps we make it part of that study session out there in the immediate future, I hope, on others of this and other sustainability items.
Is that acceptable to council? All right, so that's what we'll do. We'll carry this conversation to Saturday. Councilor Skilling, you're bold. You're lit up to speak. Is that still a malfunction? All right. Councilor Roybal, yours is the last. Could you please turn your mic on? Thanks.
I wanted to talk a little bit about my proposal, request for proposal. The motion was to initiate a process for an RFP for the Lakewood City Attorney. The background is it's the exclusive duty of the City Council under Article 3.1, 5.3, and 4.6 of the City Charter to appoint the city attorney. And it's been a number of years since the position of the city attorney has been put out for proposal or for bid, being able by an able Colorado attorney. As a matter of good practice or business practice and procedures, this position should be put out for proposal and bid on a regular basis in accordance with the city charter. So therefore, I move, and I wanted to request to move forward to appoint 5 city councilors, one from every ward, along with an independent legal counsel chosen by that committee to prepare the documents necessary to initiate the RFP process, and shall take all necessary actions to obtain review and recommendations 3 final candidates to the full council for further action. And I wanted to bring this up to city council.
Great, thank you. And just for clarification, those articles mentioned, actually, I think only one of them pertains to the city attorney. The other 2 pertain to the city manager. Is that accurate?
I have to.
All right, that's okay. Councilor Abel?
I've heard a number of my fellow council people with concerns along these lines. I believe if we have concerns with the city attorney, the proper forum to address that would be in a more personnel type setting. I suggest a friendly amendment to call an executive session to evaluate the city attorney. We're in the 3rd year of his contract. We have a wording in place in that contract to evaluate in the 3rd year. We're also changing the policies and procedures manual, and one of the proposed changes is an annual evaluation of the city attorney. I think these matters would be best handled in executive session under personnel issues. We can address our concerns to the city manager, and then if we so decide to initiate the RFP process, we can do that following that forum. So would the maker of the motion accept that as a friendly amendment?
I do.
Okay, so the request as I hear it now would be that we would, I think you would like to have the city attorney create a, so we want to review the city attorney and his work. So a summary of his work this last year or more than that you would then present to us in an executive session, much like we do with the city manager, where a report is produced and then we review that in executive session. Is that correct?
Yes, and if I may, I would like to add that we do this without very much delay. We're reviewing the manager in, I think, sometime in the coming weeks, and perhaps shortly after that we could schedule this session.
So, Ms. Hodson, I think, are you May?
It's usually April or May. It's at the conclusion of all of the other employees' evaluations. The city manager's falls at the end of that.
So would you want to mirror that end of April, early May?
If that's acceptable to the maker of the motion.
That is.
Okay. All right. So there's a little bit of a modification in the Christmas trees going on and off. That's not you this time. Councilor LeBeer.
Actually, I don't need to speak. Thanks. If we're changing the motion. So.
Councilor Bita.
Yes, I'd like to just make a comment on this. In looking at this motion, it makes a distinction, I think, between performance and procedure. I think those are 2 separate things. And this isn't talking about performance. It's not talking about whether or not anybody's unhappy with the performance of the city attorney. That's a whole different discussion. What this is talking about is a regular procedure that would be done on a regular basis, whether it's annually, 2 years, 3 years, whatever, to automatically, as I understand it, put this out for review to the legal community as a matter of good practice. Nothing to do with performance. Performance, on the other hand, because of the city attorney serves at the pleasure of council, could be terminated really at any time for performance issues, and obviously that hasn't come up or is not an issue at this time. So I want to make that distinction there so that people understand that I don't think it has anything to do with performance. It's
Great.
Procedure, and that's also very important.
Great, thank you, sir. Councilor
Mayor,
Abel.
there is a motion awaiting a second.
So let me just hold on real quick before we get in. So I don't know. I mean, I think we can just give direction. The city attorney works for the city council. We can give you direction to produce your annual report, and we can set a review or that executive session. I don't know if we need a motion to have that in place. Sir?
Yes, just the practice, I think, has been with these requests for agenda items, which has not been in the works for that long, has been to have a discussion and a direction going forward to the appropriate staff. So while we could certainly do it by motion, it's not typical to do it that way, and the formalities would not have to be met. Like I said, there's nothing wrong with doing it, but in keeping consistent with what we've done with previous agenda requests, as with Councilor LeBure's suggestion, that was disposed of in a logical fashion, and we could do the same thing with any of these, I think.
So could we mirror, would it be acceptable in the time frame to council and for you to produce that type of, be prepared for a review in line with a similar process to Ms. Hodson, so late April, early May?
That's more than enough time. Just for the record, going back many years ago, a previous council had asked us to prepare an annual report in lieu of a review. So we've never actually had a performance review. I think it was done as a concession to us to just put together a summary of what we'd done over the course of the previous year, and that's what we've done. So happy to produce a similar report for this year that can be used as the basis for the discussion with council, and we'll stay as long as we need to.
So I have a yes from Councilor Roybal.
As long as it's in the line with the requirement in the contract for an evaluation in the third year.
Yeah. Okay. So that's clear direction then? Council has consensus? Okay. All right. So we will look to mirror that. I'm not optimistic we'll have double executive sessions, so we probably won't be able to schedule both of you on one night, but let's keep that in a tight time frame with the review documentation as well as the actual executive session. Cool. All right. Thank you all. All right. So, and this is now the last topic, which will be a motion to call for an executive session. And what will happen is Councilor Witte is going to make that motion in line. It's pretty tight legally as to what we will be able to discuss. After he makes that motion, we will go into executive session upon adjournment, so after item 16, and we will not return. So there won't be any, we won't be coming out with any sort of votes or anything along those lines. So, Councilor Witte?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. At this time, I move to go into an executive session pursuant to sections 2.15 C2 and 2.15 C4 of the Lakewood Home Rule Charter and sections 24.6-4024B and 24-6-4024E of the Colorado Revised Statutes for the purposes of negotiations and attorney-client privilege, and specifically receiving reports on the progress and status of negotiations, determining positions relative to issues subject to negotiation, and instructing negotiators, as well as conferring with the city attorney to receive legal advice on specific legal questions, all with regard to the proposed use of the 59-acre property on the Denver Federal Center. Excuse me. The executive session to immediately follow tonight's meeting.
I second.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second to go into executive session upon adjournment from this meeting. Any discussion? All right, please cast your votes. All right, that passes 11 ayes, 0 nays. Ms. Hodson, executive report.
No report.
City council reports. I'll start all the way down on my left. Councilor Roybal. No report. Okay, Councilor Abel.
A question of Ms. Hodson. Recently, in fact, this week, a former council person posted on nextdoor.com the thought that the new reservoir that was excavated at the Federal Center on the Kipling side was subject to perhaps recreational use by the city, and the council member said that opposition on city council prohibited that. I'm not aware that we were ever asked. Do you have any information regarding that allegation?
No, we were never asked. This is the property that's within the fences?
Yes, the excavation required by the State Department of Health to remove tainted, I believe, tainted material.
Yes, that was never an offer from the federal government for the city residents to use that in any way.
Okay, so that information was not based in fact?
Right.
Thank you.
And is false.
Councilor Harrison.
No report.
Councilor Skilling.
Briefly, just a thank you to all of our Ward 4 people who made it out to our Ward 4 meeting through the snow. It just hit exactly during the time period that we were having our ward meeting, so that was fun. But thank you to everyone who came out to that. We had a good showing as always, and hopefully that'll continue in the future, and I'm sure it will. Thank you.
Councilor LeBeer.
I just want to reiterate something I mentioned at the last meeting, but Councilor Vincent and I are having a meet and greet with one of your State House representatives for our ward, Chris Kennedy, and that is going to be at Westfax Brewing Company. That's 6733 West Colfax Avenue. That'll be on February 20th of this year, and I hope to see you there, 6:30 to 8 p.m. And I'm told they have soda in case you don't drink the primary beverage that they sell. Also, I just want to remind people that we are trying to get as much information as possible on our website, lakewoodward2.com, so I hope you'll keep checking that out. I do see some of our stats going up, so I think this is working, so I'm going to keep saying it. Also, I just want to mention that I've had several neighbors reach out to me about issues around the city, whether it was trucks coming into the neighborhood that shouldn't have been there due to the weight and size, and also traffic issues on 13th Avenue. All those issues were sent to city staff, and all those issues were addressed with new signage and cones out in front of construction areas that took into account neighbors with disabilities, etc. So I just want to thank our city staff for that, and our city manager, Miss Hodson, which I always want to say Hodgson, sorry. So I just want to thank y'all for that. And I want to also just mention, if you have issues, please give me a call. I'm happy to sit down and talk with you on the phone or sit down for some coffee, because I usually need it. So thank you.
Councilor Gutwein.
No report.
Councilor Franks. No report. Councilor Bida. No report. Councilor Vincent.
My co-counselor missed one thing, and that is our Ward 2 meeting is Wednesday, 7:30 to 8:30 at 1580 Teller.
I don't know if he missed it or he's going to sleep through it. Councilor Johnson.
No report.
All right. I would just, again, thank you to the council for all the committee work that you do. It was nice to have an update. I'd like to thank our police agent for hanging out with us tonight, keeping us safe. And if there's nothing else for the good of the order, we will adjourn and start our executive session at 10:15. So that gives us a couple minutes.